HQLA is the Australian company which is hoping for its own $39 billion acquisition.
Yes.
This is episode 17.
Yes, it is. I would be more than happy with that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go with that
As in
one.
with the acquisition.
Yeah, with the acquisition.
And that was a good intro too.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks. Very good.
Does that intro relate to anything that's happened recently?
Well, actually, now that you mention it, Nathan, we're hot on the coals here, as you could say.
Yes.
So, Afterpay Square deal. That's what's
Ooh,
happened
okay.
in the news
What's that? Tell
this
me.
week. So,
I did hear about that.
yeah, so what's happened here
Yes.
is that Square is buying Afterpay.
Wow.
So, it's buying Afterpay for $39 billion in
Jeez.
AUD.
Okay. Yep.
I think it's actually a variable number in AUD, but I think that's the number
Yeah. Okay.
at the time of the
Yes, because
sale?
it would be a USD figure, right?
I believe
They've
it's
agreed upon.
I believe it's 29 billion
Yep.
USD
That might
is
be
the
a little bit
US
different now.
figure.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
And I believe it's a $39 billion AUD. If I've got the maths wrong on the exchange rate,
Yep.
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's what I had.
About 70,
Yeah.
70 what are we at? 74 at the moment, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Afterpay's user base at June 2021
Oh, you've got actual things on there.
was 16.2 million users,
Yeah. Just
which-
figuring out the armrest here.
which is huge, and 98,000 merchants.
98,000 merchants. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so
What did you say before merchants?
so I said 16.2 million users.
16.2 million users. Okay, great.
So that's actually a really big number.
That
if
is
you
a big
think
number.
about, say Robinhood,
Okay.
which IPO'd this week. That's
Yes, it did.
I'm giving a spoiler away for my later news piece.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
that IPO'd actually 7 trading days ago, so 10 days ago or 9 days ago.
Okay.
So that one has 18 million users.
Okay.
And that's a very popular kind of app. So the fact
18
that
million users. Yes.
yeah, so the
I
fact
gotcha.
that Afterpay has 16.2, little Aussie startup from Sydney,
Yes.
you know.
They had recently expanded a bit though, hey?
Yeah, so they've expanded overseas and
Yeah.
internationally and everything, but literally
They've
in the
done
last year. So last year's figures were
Yeah.
9.9 million users
Yep.
and 55,000 merchants.
Whoa.
So the users are up 38.9%.
Wow.
Merchants are up 43.9%.
Do you know whether or not overseas if they had to make any acquisitions to get those? Like, did they just acquire any other smaller apps or companies to get that? I
Well,
wonder.
I'm not sure because I think that they're
Seems
actually
a huge growth.
they are a pretty small business to
Right.
be making acquisitions.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that
Yeah.
there's Klarna, there's
Yeah.
all different international ones.
Yeah.
I even talk about one in the company that I'm doing
Okay.
later.
Like, obviously in Australia, Zip is probably their biggest competitor, right?
Yeah, you would say that. I
Would you?
would think that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, okay,
but
gotcha.
I think Zip is roughly half the size
Yeah.
of
Okay.
Afterpay.
Yeah.
But revenue per merchant is currently at an average of 7,000 USD or 9,000 AUD.
9,000 AUD per merchant. Wow.
Yes, which is up 13% year on year.
Or 9,000 AUD per merchant for the year?
Per
Okay.
year.
Okay.
So that's their current. And consumer monetization is at an average revenue per customer of 43 USD or 57 AUD. So that's up 22% year over year.
The consumers are not the businesses.
So that's the 16.2 million.
Okay. How do they
times-
monetize them?
Well, it's when they pay late or when they
okay.
or it's
Yeah.
all the affiliate deals and all the other bits that they get to spend on in Afterpay.
Yep. Have you heard about the two guys who own this company? Or
I haven't heard
who
the
founded
founder
it?
story or anything. I know they're from Sydney, right?
Yeah, I watched a 60 Minutes thing. It's low quality, and I have low quality content on this, but
Yeah, that's fine.
It's like low res content, not very detailed.
Low res content.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what this
we'll
is.
put this bit in 144.
Okay, as I was saying, this is low res content, meaning it's not really very detailed. But I was watching a 60 Minutes article, and it was something like there was this older guy, let's say mid-40s, and he was living across the road from this young hotshot coder dude. And this older dude was like a salesman or something. Maybe he might have even worked in finance.
Yep.
Something to do with the two. And then he was living across the road from this guy. And the story kind of goes that like they would put the bins out and like they'd say hello to each other. And like the kid's like say 19, he's like 40, so like 5 or something, whatever, mid 40s, maybe early 30s. sorry, late 30s. And so basically the story goes that somehow they had some sort of conversation, and it was like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Like, do you want to code that with me, or do you want to help me sell this product?
Yeah, cool.
And then they basically just came together and started this thing called Afterpay, and then it's just been acquired by Square, which is pretty crazy.
Very
it
cool.
must be one of the biggest acquisitions in Australia, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a huge number for an Aussie company.
Yeah.
And so it's actually made both of them billionaires. I know that.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool.
That's
so,
cool.
I mean, obviously.
There's not that many in Australia, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how many.
We got Mike Cannon-Brooks. You got whoever.
Gina Reinhart.
But you got the other guy who started the same company, Team Atlassian.
Yeah, Atlassian dudes.
And then
I don't know what their names are.
Well, one of them was Mike Cannon.
Okay. I didn't know that's his name.
I think his name's Mike Cannon-Brooks or something.
Could be. It's possible.
And who else? There's the guy from Western Australia who came back and spread COVID to Western Australia.
Oh, really?
Because he and we might get the little flag that says false news has been detected about COVID-19.
Don't talk about COVID.
But he spread but he legit spread. His name's Alan something, and he spread COVID to. He owns like Fortescue Metals or something. Or he's like, the original. He's like
really
the CEO at least.
Okay.
So he
very
he came back from Switzerland. He got it from a Russian translator
in Switzerland.
Okay.
Then
he came back through like Singapore or something. Then came back straight back to Australia on his private jet. Yeah. And then said, no worries. Like I'll quarantine, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then just went and did like his bit, went to work, did whatever. Didn't really care about the rules. And
really,
because he flew in private and got into his private car and went straight home, all that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's like no one was there to stop him from doing that. No. It's like you're kind of trusted to do the right thing if you're a billionaire that's like, that doesn't follow the rules. Anyway, that's that
exactly
story.
Right.
But back to Afterpay, which I can cut all that.
Was his name Andrew Forrest?
Yes, I think that's him. Yeah. Give me the actual story.
Okay, I'll just click on it.
All right.
It says, mining billionaire Andrew Twiggy Forrest. I don't know why it's Twiggy.
Oh, yeah,
Forrest.
Twiggy. Yeah. That's his...
Is that his, nickname?
Yeah, because it's like Forrest.
He says he contracted COVID-19 whilst in Central Asia. Whilst in Central Asia, Dr. Forrest, 60-year-old, he is...
Doctor?
Yeah, his ordeal in an exclusive interview with Australian Financial Review after spending much of 2020 travelling the globe in pursuit of renewable energy projects. Yeah, you're right. Fortescue Metals Group.
Yeah. Much of 2020 travelling the globe. How good is that?
Australia's richest man said he caught the disease from a Russian interpreter after he joined the Fortescue travel crew for a 4-month tour covering 47 countries.
Yeah, there you go. 47 countries.
Yeah.
It's not just Asia, mate.
Well, maybe the Singapore stopover is where he got it.
Yeah.
Is that what it's implying? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
Sorry. Wow, that's really just gone off track, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, that was very silly of him. Anyway, so we can cut in that. Afterpay's reported revenue number is up 92% for the 2-year period of financial year 19 to 21. Now, that isn't 92% from... this is a heaps interesting. This is a reported measure. It's compound annual growth rate.
Yeah.
CAGR.
Yeah.
So
I used that one last week. I think I did.
Yeah, there you go. So it's up from 189 million to 693 million in revenue, which is pretty cool. So the actual split of the growth is 45% and 99.7%.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool. So, yeah, in the last 2 years, they've just grown massively.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
remember, Isaac and I used to talk about Afterpay. We kind of... I think we were talking about it at a pretty good point, and we talked about it, and then it kind of went up a lot.
Well, we never really discussed it.
Well, I remember talking about it, and we were talking about it's interesting to see which businesses had the bigger Afterpay signs or the bigger zip signs out the front.
That's true, but I think we didn't talk about that on the podcast.
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean on the podcast.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Not on the podcast. Yes. And so I owned it at one point, and then it went right up, and I really didn't believe in the company as itself. Yeah, it's a good company. It's awesome that some Australians have started it, but I didn't even really believe in the concept of loaning people money to buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's not a great idea.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I understand that it's meeting a need potentially, but it's also causing a lot of havoc potentially for people who can't control themselves, which is their problem. But
so it could be a little immoral, hey?
Well, yeah, just personal. I don't know. It's not immoral. It's not unethical. What they do, but it's there's a lot of vulnerable people who can't control themselves,
Yeah, that's fair enough.
and we don't need to provoke the whole like shopaholic mentality. That's all.
That's true. All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's
Rant.
good. So Square is planning, sorry.
Shopify, what?
We'll cut that bit out.
Okay.
We're not looking at that yet. Square is planning to easily integrate Afterpay into its existing merchant accounts.
Yeah. Okay.
So it currently has 2 million merchants,
Yeah.
which is a little more than 99,000 or 98,000, as Afterpay has.
Yes.
So it's got 2 million merchants,
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
and 210 million buyer profiles.
Okay. So it adds this Afterpay function as like a function for those people.
Yeah, so the fact that they've got 210 million individuals, whereas Afterpay has 16 million individuals, it's a huge
10 million.
Yeah, and 2 million merchants, which is wild. So yeah, they're
It's
about
like 10 Australias.
Yeah, so they're about 20 times bigger in terms of merchants, and whatever that is in terms of 200 times bigger in terms of
I tell you a funny story.
20 times bigger in terms of
I sold all of my Square stock probably like 2 weeks before they did the acquisition.
What a silly boy.
No, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I don't care. Yeah,
It's more interesting companies.
there are more interesting companies. So they're going to be integrating it as an option in the Cash App, which has 70 million users.
Yeah.
And so the acquisition really makes a lot of sense there.
Yes.
As well as especially in the existing merchants.
Can I say just a random thought that I think to a certain extent, Square needed this acquisition because like in the last year, maybe even in the last 2 years, their revenue has been so strong from the crypto holdings that they've had in their, I guess, in their business.
Yeah, right.
And so from like where I sit, it looked like, well, this coming year really wasn't as strong as it has been in the last, say, 2 years. And so I reckon it might have not really looked great on their graphs.
Yeah.
And so making an acquisition like this to all of a sudden take on all these new customers and take on whatever, I think was a really smart move for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because,
Sorry. No,
that's fine.
No, it is a good move.
I think so.
I think it really will integrate in what they've already got.
Yeah.
So I want to give a little bit more context as well. US banking policy is way behind on technology.
Oh, okay.
So they all use Cash App and Venmo to make transfers instead of logging into their banking app like we would in Australia.
Oh, like they can't transfer fast and stuff like that.
Yeah, like they can't.
They don't have Pay ID.
Yeah, not that kind of thing. Okay. It's like I don't even know if they can make regular transfers. Like I don't know what they do.
It's true. US is very behind. They just give each other checks.
Yeah, they give each they mail checks like a lot. Like it's crazy. So they use Cash App and Venmo to interface between different banks.
Yeah.
And it's not really a thing where you can just send someone money easily through your banking app.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason that Square's such a successful neobanking solution.
Yes.
And why it'll be a good interface.
Yes.
My next news story.
Okay.
Because it's a short segment.
Is it though?
Well, it's supposed to be
20 minutes.
It's supposed to be a short segment.
Maybe it's gonna go down a bit here.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I feel like I was sitting up a bit high.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you're always a bit lower than me, and we need to make sure it's leveled out.
It's in the contract.
So we're definitely late to the party on this one.
Which one is it?
Netflix are adding video games to their subscription product.
I didn't know that.
Oh, there you go.
Did I know that? I don't know if I knew that. Who we got? Who is this?
We have got our favorite caller on the phone. And your question today, caller, is...
I've gone all in on Palantir options that expired today, and it's gone down.
Palantir is a tough one. Our video is doing quite well on Palantir, but it's a long-term play. I wouldn't suggest
better than their stock.
I wouldn't suggest.
It's not hard though.
My life savings on it.
Speaking of that, we actually had an AMD comment before saying that he'd refinanced his house.
Was that AMD?
Yeah, that was AMD.
All right.
Yeah. He refinanced his house to go and also got a margin loan.
Yep.
To go even further in on AMD. Luckily, it did go up about 30% in that week.
I feel good. 30%?
So I think he did really well. So it was going up about 10% a day before...
From our video.
And after. Yeah, from our video. Before and after earnings call. What do you think about that, caller? Was that you?
Oh my gosh. That's an incredible move. I'm going to go mortgage my house, remortgage my house, and buy some more calls.
This is not financial advice. Disclaimer there.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we're going to be saying goodbye to you there, caller. Thank you for your valued time.
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Netflix video games.
It was a great time to call in.
I don't think I knew that.
So Netflix are adding video games to their subscriptions product offering. They're going to be doing that.
The video games are on the platform.
Yeah, so they're going to be doing that like from next year.
Okay.
And I don't know much more about it. It does sound like a very weird idea.
Yeah.
But
so you could go onto your PlayStation, open the Netflix application, and just start playing a random video games. I wonder what are they gonna come up with their own? Are they gonna license existing games? How are they gonna get those licenses?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if you think about the way that Netflix started, it was all content that was someone else's.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that they'll just go, hey, like this producer, you know, like this video game maker.
Yeah.
Hey, like we're gonna pay you this much.
Yeah.
Will you help us do this? And then I don't even know if they're going to be like using their own like console. Are they using existing consoles? Are they going to pay Sony and Microsoft?
How do I play these games on my computer?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like
It's very strange.
Yeah, it's like you're going to be using PlayStation. Are you going to be paying Sony? Are you going to be paying Microsoft to develop you know, something that works better with you know, I don't know, but
interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. My last piece of news is that Robinhood IPO'd.
Okay.
So it IPO'd on the 29th of July.
Okay.
And in its 7 trading days, it has grown 58% from $34.82 to $55 with a current market cap of $45.97 billion.
What percent? Sorry, did you say?
It's grown 58%.
58, wow.
58. So it grew over 100% in one day.
Yeah.
And it's come back. It's cooled off since then.
Yes.
But
that was always going to happen.
Yeah, it was a rapid growth.
I'm surprised it hasn't dipped. Like I would have expected it to skyrocket and then dip right down. Like
dip back past the IPO price.
So that's interesting that it's still after 7 days up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Bit of stock strength there. Do you have any news yourself to bring?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Hit me.
So allegedly, ARK sold all of their Chinese companies.
Yes.
Over the past week or so, I looked at. So I get an email.
They're giving into the fear. They're giving into the
right.
Yeah.
So I get an email from. You can sign up online on the ARK website, and you can get their trading for the day.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of days where they're selling.
There's also a website that's specifically dedicated to what ARK does.
That's right.
Which is heaps interesting.
That's right.
Someone's a real fanboy there.
Exactly. And so you can see their buys and sells. And so they've been selling a lot of their Chinese companies over the last week. So for them, like so you can see the percent of the portfolio that they're selling. And so they've done a 1% on 2 occasions of the JD.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever company that is.
I think it's just JD.
JD?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's pretty massive. I haven't seen a 1% before. It's usually like less than 0.5%, much less than 0.5% in a single trade of the portfolio. Of that particular portfolio. So pretty drastic measures from
So
Cathie.
1% of the total portfolio
value, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. And so there you go. That's interesting. Another one is Salesforce officially acquired Slack.
Yes, that's been a long time coming.
That's right. And we'll like integrate it into their, I guess their CRM and all of their.
So is it going to be trading under CRM?
Well, I don't know. I listened to a few things on it. My understanding is that they're going to try and integrate it completely into all of their current software.
Yep.
And that Slack. In regards to operational, Slack will operate still as they are,
right?
As a separate business to a certain extent.
So
they're not going to disrupt their workflow. And then the only other one, which is a little more Australia-based, is that BHP announced like a nickel supply agreement with Tesla.
That's right.
Which is kind of cool because it's like, name the most boring company, name the most interesting company, and the two of them have like made a deal.
It's going to offend a lot of people with that one. There's a lot of BHP supporters.
Like, name the company that all of the
Unless you're calling Tesla boring.
Yeah, who knows which one? Like, one of them is like, because it's just interesting because like at uni, like all of the professors are like, very pro BHP,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
very like think that Tesla is just crazy in the valuation and all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so the fact that the two of them are making an agreement is just like funny.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. A lot of people that where I used to work really hated Tesla. So.
Right. A lot of people
yeah,
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of traditional financial people, I think,
Definitely.
hate
yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah. But the problem
Not
with
us,
BHP...
though. I don't hate Tesla.
Well, the problem with BHP is that... Well, the problem with any mining company...
Yeah.
My main issue...
Okay.
The only way that you can make more money than last year...
Yeah.
Is digging a bigger hole.
It's good.
And the only way to dig a bigger hole is to... like go and offend a lot more people and find something worse and then get protests against you and then get policymakers working against you.
Yeah.
And you literally just have to pay policymakers on the other side even more money to continue.
It's true. You're just digging a bigger hole, both PR related and physical.
Yeah. Not good for the brand. No. So
yes, very good.
I think that's our news.
No, that's it. That's perfect. Oh. So something that's been happening recently and is currently going on is the Olympics.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And so I've heard...
I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably not as prominent as it used to be. I think, tell me what you think, but I think when we were younger, it was more prevalent because that was kind of taken over by... like. Every channel was taken over by the Olympics.
And people used to watch TV as well.
Well, yeah, obviously. So, okay, the first thing is there was no, like, on-demand watching. So you just watched whatever was on the schedule on the TV.
Yeah, and YouTube then wasn't even a thing.
YouTube wasn't really a thing. You could read a book, I suppose, or jump on a trampoline.
Yeah.
But so then once every channel, it felt like, maybe it wasn't, but it felt like almost every channel was taken over by the Olympics. I guess everyone just had to watch it. And so that's all you talked about.
Yeah.
Not so much now, though. Yes, I think we're still all watching it to a certain extent. I can't say I've ever put it on, but my housemates that I live with, they watch it.
Yeah.
And so I'll come out and see some rowing or something. But it's definitely not what it used to be, I don't think. So, and there's also a bit of a stigma around the costs that host cities are having to incur to put this on. So I'll touch on that a little bit in this segment because it's relevant to us because they also recently just announced that Brisbane in 2032 is going to take the Summer Olympics again. And it was interesting to see some people's responses in regards to some were very sarcastic, negative style responses, basically inferring that the cost is going to be so great, it's not really worthwhile. Some people are pumped with it. We'll talk a little bit more about how the Olympics works, and then you can come up with your own decision.
Oh, okay. My own decision, bull or bear?
On the Olympics.
Oh, okay.
I should note this is potentially the first private company that we've dived into.
Yeah, right. You can all come up with your own decision at home.
This is not a public company.
Yeah, so the Olympics is a company.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So the company's called International Olympic Committee, and it's just a non-profit.
Yeah.
And it was established in 1894 on the 23rd of June.
1894.
In Paris. And it's currently based in... I did practice this. It's currently based in...
Here we go.
Lausanne, Switzerland.
Ah, nice.
Which is termed the Olympic capital. I guess that's, their promotion for tourism. And during World War One, I said...
It's not Mount Olympus in Greece?
No, that's right.
Interesting.
And so during World War One, the committee decided to move the headquarters from France, where it was originated, to Switzerland because it was a neutral ground. And during World War One and during World War Two, I wasn't alive, but apparently the Olympics still happened.
Yeah.
And so even at times where countries are at war, there's also their athletes that are challenging each other on the field and stuff.
That's really interesting.
Which is really interesting psychologically. And so they built a new headquarters in 2019 in Lausanne, and it was to mark the 125th anniversary of IOC, which is how I'll refer to International Olympic Committee.
Yes.
And it's actually really worth looking into. It's called Olympic House, and we might have a little photo of it up here. And it's a really beautiful building. It's like a sustainable green building. It's got solar panels all over the top, and it's like kind of like funny. It's like a funny flowing shape. And it's a really beautiful building. It's awesome. And so basically the IOC president, who's the top dog, in the organisation is Thomas Buck, we'll go with that. And and he's born in Germany. And so he was actually an Olympic fencing champion in 1976, which seems like a really long time ago, and 2006. And
wow.
Yeah, so big gap between his two championships.
Had a lot of time to training.
And so he was he would have been in college during his first run at the Olympics in 1976, and then obviously he's a bit older in 2006. But I guess fencing is a different vibe. You can probably be a bit older for that. A bit like shooting, not quite like shooting, but similar.
Still got to be relatively athletic, I guess.
I think you do have to be
a lot of technique, maybe.
Yeah, probably a lot of technique. Probably not a lot of people who want to do fencing. So
he's saying he has an advantage because he can.
Maybe there was no one else. Do you ever think that there's sports like that? Like there's some random sports. I wish I should have actually looked up some interesting Olympic sports. But there are some sports that you wouldn't even know the name of, and yet there are people who are like champions in those sports.
Yeah.
It's like, you're only there's a chance that
you're not that
someone
good.
Else is probably better at that sport, but they just didn't know it existed.
They weren't bothered to sign up.
That's all I'm saying.
Something interesting about the, if I can interrupt you.
No, please.
Something interesting, the climbing was in the Olympics for the first time.
Climbing, yes.
This year.
That's
and
right.
they have 3 separate events, but only 1 gold medal. So there are 3 different kind of disciplines. There's like climbing with a line, bouldering, which is just like free or whatever, and then speed. And they made the gold medal event like speed climbing, but they probably should have had 3 separate
so they
gold
still
medals.
had the 3 disciplines, but they only allocated the gold medal to one of them.
Yes, that's right. So for the final...
Was everyone in all of them?
Yeah, so the people that... I think that the people that succeeded in all 3... and got through all the like final things or whatever, had to compete in speed climbing to get the gold medal.
And hopefully they were good at speed climbing.
Yeah, and so it was a little rough for the people that are really good at bouldering and not good at speed climbing.
Here's an interesting sport.
Skateboarding.
Have you ever heard of a modern pentathlon?
A modern pentathlon. Is that 5 things?
Yep. So it's 5 different events. First one's fencing, and the next one's freestyle swimming, 200 meters.
Yep.
200. 200 meters. The next one, which is like 4 laps of a 50-meter pool. And then the next one is equestrian show jumping, 15 jumps.
Equestrian, like on the horse.
Yeah. And then the next one is a combined event of pistol shooting and cross-country running, 3.2 kilometers.
So, all right, here's what I reckon you do. You get someone
crazy.
You get someone who's good at swimming and running, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just spend 3 years saying like, hey, just like master your thing, swimming and running kind of thing.
Swimming and running, yeah.
And then spend a couple of months. All right, here's a gun.
Yes.
All right, here's a horse.
That's right. Yeah, time allocation is probably about that, right?
Yeah. And then fencing is, and it's like, I don't know, that'd be fine,
That's interesting.
It's like, I wonder which ones they're if anyone who's won, I wonder if they're really bad at fencing, and really bad at equestrian, and really good at swimming, running,
how does it work?
and shooting.
If you get stabbed in fencing, do you not get to compete in the other ones?
Or
do you get a time disadvantage?
Do you have to be the best in the first event, and then gradually be worse, and it doesn't matter? Because as long as you're the last one standing in the free run at the end,
Exactly. You don't actually kill each other in fencing, so it's like, that's interesting concept. I guess the idea of it is, like all of these disciplines, fencing, swimming, jumping, probably not so much swimming, but pistol shooting. I guess it's all, like if you're a warrior, these are the things you need to be good at.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I guess these people are like the ultimate warrior humans or something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like CrossFit.
Yeah, I suppose.
But with more random things.
Like, I don't know. So, yeah. Okay, so he was Thomas Buck. He studied law and politics, so he's currently the IOC president. And as I just mentioned at the very start of this segment, it's a non-for-profit, independent international organisation, and they're entirely privately funded. And they distribute. This is interesting. They distribute 90% of their revenue to wider sporting movements. So they have a bunch of smaller organizations that they distribute their 90% of their revenues to. So they basically can operate on 10% of their revenue.
Pretty interesting.
Which is interesting.
Very lightweight.
Very. Well, yeah, I guess. Well, I think the heavy lifting is done by the host country.
That's true.
And so they basically sign the contracts, I don't know how. Well, actually, I'll show you how they get their revenue. So IOC, this is mainly how they get their revenue. So it's split up into 4 different segments. IOC versus the country's, the host country's percentage of the TV revenue. So in the 90s, the IOC took 4% of the total revenue generated from all of the TV stuff. Excuse me. But by 2016, and it's similar now, IOC now takes 70%.
70. Wow.
Yeah, so it leaves 30% for the host country, which kind of is I think that's the main issue that then leads to these budget problems that the host country are having.
Because they spend a huge amount.
They spend a huge amount of money and they're not really getting enough revenue return.
Especially with no travel to Japan.
Exactly. Without the tourism and stuff, injection, it's going to be pretty difficult. So 73% of the total revenue received by IOC, 73% of it is the broadcasting rights that I just mentioned. 19% of it is like some marketing rights and stuff that they do.
Yep.
And then 5% is other revenues and 4% is other rights. I guess the rights to use their likeness and their rings and blah blah blah. So as I said, 10% of that goes to the operations, paying salaries, keeping this Olympic house going, all of those things. And then the other 90% goes to Olympic Games and athlete development, is what they say. So goes to funding whatever they deem necessary to develop upcoming athletes and stuff. So that could be, I know they invest a lot of that money into the youth Olympics games and stuff, which doesn't really generate a lot of revenue, but is definitely a stepping stone to the actual revenue generator, being the Summer Olympics. Worth noting at this point that there is also Winter Olympics that I won't be focusing on that much. Yeah. Because
no one cares.
Yeah. No, but people care. People care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
people that like skiing or something. Who knows? I didn't watch it.
I think that is in it. So the Olympics is held. Do you know how many days the Olympics is held over?
45.
No, 45.
I don't know. How many?
What?
Well, you tell me. I don't know. I guessed that. That was a guess.
But you've seen the Olympics before.
Slammed
it's not
for
like
guessing.
You've never seen it. It's on right now.
Yeah, I know it's on right now. 30.
It's not on for like a month.
20.
No, not 16.
16, okay.
Sorry, I shouldn't have been so judgmental, but that was a funny
Never
guess.
guessing anything.
And so they require generally over about 35 different venues required in the host city to provide. So of recent builds, the village that they need to build usually costs about $3 billion. I'll go in a little bit more depth in a minute as to what they require for that. I'll do a little bit of a deep dive on Tokyo. They are required to hold, which usually means building a media TV facility, which usually has a cost of around $1 billion, which is pretty hectic. They also need to additionally build a media village, green spaces, the ceremony space. They need to have adequate transportation amongst the venues. And so that often means building metros and like pretty substantial things. And one interesting point is they're required to have special lanes or specific access for IOC executives.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's funny, isn't it? And
must be nice.
And so that's why it kind of requires 10 years of planning.
Yeah.
So it's 10 years is in their plan. So, yep. So there's a guy named...
So Brisbane got 11 to think about it.
More than that, right?
What did you say, 2032?
What year are we in?
It's 2021.
2021. No, you're right. And so Andrew Zimbalist...
Is he the guy? Is he the...
I think's his name. Andrew Zimbalist. He is a economics professor, and he just studies the Olympics. And so if you watch... I'd say if you watch 75% of any Olympics videos on the logistics or financial side of the Olympics, he'll pop up at some point talking about the economics of the Olympics.
Well, he's got to get paid for something.
Well, yeah, I don't know how he monetizes it, but he's got a couple of books. Yeah. One of them's called Rio 2019, Olympic Myths, Hard Realities. And so he's a bit critical of the economics related to the Olympics, rightfully so. And so, he just seems to be right amongst it, and that's his niche, which is a funny niche, but I guess it works for him. He gets a bit of screen time. So the history of the Olympics, quite simply, is in 1896 was the start of the first really international games of the Olympics, and that's back when you couldn't have women.
You're not going to go back to...
No. So not going back to like ancient Greek.
0 BC.
No, just starting with like the first international style Olympic Games that we
the
now
modern
know.
Olympics.
Right,
Yeah.
the modern Olympics. Let's call it that. Under the IOC, I guess management, and so there was no women at that point. In 1936, the Berlin was the first to actually broadcast the Olympics, and for it to start to be tailored towards TV viewing as opposed to live audience. But that was only 50,000 viewers in a nearby stadium that they were broadcasting to. 1948 in London, there's 50,000 viewers in just a 125-mile radius around the city. So local broadcast. And then 1960 in Rome was the first international broadcast. So 1960, finally reaching millions of people.
Yeah. Well, that's the only time when they really could do that. Though,
Exactly
isn't
right.
It? Yeah.
No, of course.
Yeah.
And so 1968 in Mexico City saw 17% of the world having access to it, which was about 6 million people at that
crazy.
point.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, we now, in the opening ceremony this year for Tokyo, we had just under 17 million people watching it.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. And 1976 in Montreal was really the start of things getting worse, because at that point, I guess hosting cities seeing the notoriety and seeing the ability to make your city look better than everybody else's. And so cities are investing huge amounts of money in basically playing the who looks better game.
Yeah, yeah.
And so their budget in Montreal in 1976 was overrun or over budget by 10x. So
yeah, wow.
Approximately. So the original budget was $120 million, and they ended up spending 1.5 billion. Which is pretty crazy. And so it wasn't, so that was in 1976. It wasn't until 2006, 30 years later, that was finally paid off.
Yeah, yeah.
And for a few factors. They say it's because of increased steel costs. They had a bunch of workers strike, stuff like that. But one thing that came out of it was the Montreal metro system, which they think brought a bit of a return back to the city.
So it's good. It can be good for, yeah.
Yeah, so there's some good elements. We can't be too critical. So then 1984 in LA, they had it in LA because it had been a couple of years now. So they'd done 1976. I don't know what they did in 1980. And then in 1984, now cities are seeing that, well, it's got this bad reputation of just making cities broke, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And so no one wanted to bid for it. And so in 1984, LA took it because no one wanted to host. And because LA was already so well structured, because they were already so well structured in regards to facilities in the city and transportation and stuff like that, they actually, from the budget, had a surplus of $250 million. And so they didn't really have to do that much building and stuff like that. And so they basically were proving the point that it doesn't actually have to be a money pit for cities.
Yeah.
So we're in 1984 there. Since 1980, to cover that in-between period, the overrun average has been about 250%.
Okay.
So it really hasn't gotten any better.
So no one's good at budgeting, is what that says.
So I've got like a little graph here that we can pop in, a little column graph. And so Beijing, for example, in 2008... Oh, you're right. Atlanta, 1996.
Yeah.
Beijing in 2008, their budget was, well done. Their budget was about 16 billion, and they spent in the vicinity of 45 billion. London budget was about 5 billion, and they spent approximately 16, 17 billion. And so, and in the Winter Olympics, Sochi, their budget was about 10.5 billion, and they ended up spending 51 billion.
Is that the one in Russia in the Black Sea?
Yes, that's right.
Hey.
And yes, that's right. It's a Russian city on the Black Sea. The problem with that was
was a controversial one because I think at the time Vladimir Putin was looking to invade Ukraine or something.
Really?
And everyone's like, "Oh no, don't don't go to Sochi. Like you're supporting someone who is invading someone else. Not Crimea, I think.
And the interesting thing about the Winter Olympics, the reason why that cost is so great, which is the highest cost we've ever seen at any games, is because they had to pull down all of the trees on mountains and put in like ski infrastructure and all that kind of stuff.
Could have done it somewhere where there already was a ski slope. Let's deforest this whole mountain.
So it brings up some environmental issues as well. And so I've got another bar graph here, a column graph showing the bids put in from host cities over time from 2002 to 2024. And so 2002, we had 9 bids, 2004, 11, 2012 we'll skip to, there's 9 again, 2016 down to 7, 2018 down to 3, and then 2022, 2024, obviously we're talking winter and summer here.
Yeah.
1 and 1. So the trend is trending down in regards to interested cities who want to bid again.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what we were talking about.
With the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s in LA. And so the IOC in 2014, to basically try to mitigate this, they did 2 things. So as they were seeing there wasn't a lot of interest in 2004, 2028. So 2024, 2028 Summer Olympics, there wasn't a lot of bid interest. They basically allocated them straight away to Paris and LA.
Okay.
So 2024 is Paris and 2028 is LA.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to implement the same strategy in the 80s that they did with LA. So they want to prove that in 2028 LA can host it and really not have to build much infrastructure and see it be more of a profitable endeavor to then, I think, try and bolster some more interest again and increase the bids for future years. So the second thing was they've created an agenda. So in 2014, they released a 2020 agenda, kind of like goals for 2020 vision, whatever. And so it was 40 actions to shape the future of the Olympics. And 3 of them that are relevant to this is the first one was they want to evaluate bid cities by assessing key opportunities and risks. The second one is reduce the cost of bidding. So the situations where, for example, in 2016, for the Rio Summer Olympics, which was the last ones, Tokyo spent $150 million just in consultation firms, city planning, event organizing, just to try and win the bid. And then they didn't even win it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So they try and reduce that cost. And then the other one was including sustainability in all aspects of the Olympic Games. So the Olympic house that they've built is sustainability green focused. And they want to try and build the brand more towards that now.
And that's why they got cardboard beds.
Well, I don't know if that was the reason. Well, you still have to chop trees down. I don't see how that's sustainable. Anyway.
No, you just take the bark off.
Okay.
Do you know how cardboard's made?
And so that brings us to the Rio Games, which I'll talk about super quickly. So as I said, Tokyo spent $150 million and they didn't win it. The budget that Rio set once getting the games was $2.8 billion. The actual cost was $20 billion. And so some of the costs were $2 billion towards sports-related venues, as you'd expect. And that's sports-specific venues that really didn't see any future value to the city. Some of that might have been building specific infrastructure that was then torn down or whatever. $8 billion towards legacy builds, so that's things like highways, renovation of the port, which is $4.2 billion, the cleaning of the bay, a subway line that they put in, which is $3 billion, and 40,000 hotel rooms of accommodation that was required.
Yeah.
And so they required 40,000 and they had to construct 15,000 more because they only had 25,000 or whatever. And so the intention after the games was to use these as luxury apartments, but still to this day, most of them are still vacant. And they actually cost the city $14 million a year to upkeep.
Oh, right.
And so that's a big fail there, really.
Yeah.
The stadium, for example, that they use called Soccer Maracana Stadium, which is in Rio, they had the power cut in 2017 due to unpaid bills for over 2 months. before then reopening. So it kind of paints a bit of a picture of these cities building this infrastructure that they really can't handle. They can't pay for, maintenance-wise even in the future.
Well, a lot of them are run down if you ever see any pictures.
There's heaps of terrible videos of all these rundown stadiums and stuff. Exactly right. And so in response to this, the Olympic Games executive director, whose name's Christoph Juby, he says that a lot of host cities often go over and above the requirements that we set towards the games to attract future tourism and to create jobs and stuff like that. And he says that now they've realized that, now they're working with the host city to decide upon what makes sense, and with the intention of not being able to be accused of future problems, creating future problems. And so they're really aware of that now. And so just in finishing, I thought I'd just quickly discuss the 2020 games that recently happened. So the bidding process saw the US place the first bid. Tokyo then put in their bid, as did Madrid, Istanbul, Baku, and Doha. And it was a 2-year evaluation process, which cut into the 10-year time. So they ended up only having somewhere around 7 years to plan the Tokyo Olympics. They ended up having an additional year, but...
yeah, true.
So it's this really cool document which you can go online and look at if anyone's really interested, because there's more in it than I've taken out. But there's a thing called Host City Contract Operational Requirements, which is literally like this long 273-page PDF, which is the document that's given to Tokyo to put on the Olympics.
Okay.
And I'll give you some things in it because it's really interesting.
Okay, all right.
Because the idea is they want to... the Olympics needs to be to a certain standard, and it needs to be consistent across years. That's the two main objectives of this document. And so here's some things that it outlines. So there needs to be... So for this Tokyo Olympics, some of the stipulations were there needs to be weather stations to be installed at least 3 years prior to inform the IOC of weather patterns in creation of their schedule.
Yeah.
So that needs to... Then stations need to be located anywhere near any of the facilities that they're going to do, the venues that they're going to have sporting arrangements in.
Yep.
So if they're, doing surfing down at the beach or whatever, they need to have a station there, blah, blah. It needs to be 16 days. The accommodation for this particular year required 41,177 hotel rooms just for the individuals associated with the games, which doesn't include athletes.
Yeah, okay.
To put that in perspective, that's almost half of all the hotel rooms in Tokyo, and Sydney has about 20,000 hotel rooms available. So that kind of paints a bit of a perspective for you. So to solve that problem, because they're obviously assuming to have all the tourists there, they had this plan to dock all these cruise ships in the harbour and use them as
as hotel
additional
rooms.
hotel rooms for like tourists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't need that.
Yeah.
And so the Olympic Village is a really interesting one. So they stipulate a lot of things with that. So the Olympic Village has to be within 30 kilometres or a 60-minute drive of every venue.
Wow, okay.
So what that means is if you have a venue that's...
you could put it a really long way away and put a super highway to every...
Yes, or you need to, or you need to build a second Olympic Village.
Yeah, wow.
So you need to have them all within 30 kilometres or 60 minutes, or you need to build another village. And there's instances, I think it was, again, in that Winter Olympics in wherever that was, or wherever I said it was, Sochi.
Yeah.
Obviously, Winter Olympics, you're up on, up in the ski fields, and then you're down here doing this in an ice rink or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they did have to build multiple Olympic villages, which is obviously pretty costly.
Yeah, that's
which
crazy.
Added to the cost. But for
no grace for any further travel,
No.
It's like you train for 4 years, you can't sit in a car for 45 minutes,
And so it must accommodate for this particular Tokyo Olympics. They calculated 16,000 people. So I assume that's 16,000 athletes approximately. And the bedroom sizes, for example, have to be 9 by 9 meters, and a double bedroom has to be 12 by 12 meters at least. In the Olympic Village, it must have an Olympic merchandise store, must have a bank, must have a photo store, must have a hair salon, a florist, a dry cleaning service, a travel agent, a post office, and a designated place of mourning.
What if someone's going to die in there?
Well, actually, now that you mention that, I
Okay.
didn't write this down, but
Okay.
there's also a contractual agreement in the insurance section of the document, and it goes through all the insurances that are required to be undertaken by the host city. And one of them is that if someone they must have an insurance that covers minimum of $80,000 USD payout to anyone who dies or has more than 59% disablement from an event that occurs whilst they're participating in the Olympic Games.
59% disablement.
Anything below 59%, and the payout is prorated according to that.
Wow.
So I was talking to someone today about that, and they said, well, they mentioned an athlete who tore some ligament down in their foot.
Yeah. It's got to be like a 2% disablement.
And I said, well, yeah, if they're 2% disabled, they're going to get some sort of payout because they would have had an insurance policy related to that. And that also, on the document, includes terrorism.
Yeah, wow.
So
It's good that they got that covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So McDonald's. So McDonald's are a major sponsor of the Olympics because we all know everything at McDonald's is very healthy, and
Yes.
Olympians eat that a lot of the time.
Yes.
And so McDonald's set up, and again, you can find it if you look in the cafeteria section of this document. There's a space which is very ambiguously left blank, which says McDonald's on it, but it doesn't have any details. And so they set up a McDonald's. They set up a temporary McDonald's in the village.
Yeah.
And it looks like a normal McDonald's. They have all the menu, but they have no prices. And the idea is that the fact of having the McDonald's there and having athletes eat McDonald's is enough of a promotion to bring enough value for them to do that. And so that's a recurring thing that happens every time they do it, every 4 years, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think's interesting is they do that because it's good PR for McDonald's, so it's worth their while to go in and do that, which I think is really interesting. In Italy, for example, they did some Olympics, and they built an Olympic village, and right now it's derelict and there's just squatters inhabiting it.
Yeah.
But in Sydney, I don't know if have you seen the Olympic Village in Sydney? Yeah. Okay, so the Olympic Village in Sydney is just like a neighborhood.
They've just made it into residential houses.
People just live in them.
Yeah. Which is good, which is what you want. Like,
it's perfect. It's what every other country should have done.
Yeah.
I think attempted maybe to do.
Yeah.
I was there probably a year ago, and I had to pick up pick up an organ that someone had bought, and I had to help them pick it up in Sydney. And so, I was in, one of the little Olympic Village houses, and I was lifting an organ down the stairs.
Yeah.
Which is random.
Yeah.
But just the last thing on McDonald's, I was looking at the accommodation requirements. So they send through all the requirements of the accommodation hotel room bookings for all of the staff, as I said, all 41,000 of them. And there's this one section, I should have written this down as well, but there's this one section which says, it says something about top major sponsors or something, and then the category is hospitality, and it says hospitality, and then it says like executive directors or something is like the three dot points, and it's the only people group in the whole accommodation list that have to have 5-star accommodation. Even the president of the IOC only requires 4 to 5-star accommodation.
Yeah, right.
And so if you can read between the lines, one of the major sponsors of the Olympics is McDonald's.
Yeah.
And they're a hospitality company.
Right.
My assumption is that they only stay in 5-star hotels.
Yeah.
And so that's the only group of people that are stipulated on the document that must have 5-star, not 4 to 5-star. So
the McDonald's workers have to,
not the McDonald's workers, the McDonald's executives.
Right.
Okay, so in Tokyo, there was 3 categories of venues. They did temporary venues, they used existing venues, and they constructed some new venues. So of temporary venues, they did stuff like canoeing, climbing, beach volleyball, and sailing. They just set up a bunch of infrastructure and they tear it all down.
Yeah.
For table tennis, they use existing venues, and for swimming and diving, they constructed a new aquatic centre. But for them to do that nowadays, the Olympic Committee have to publish a detailed post-games plan to prove that the construction of this building is actually going to bring value to the location or community.
Yeah, because of all the failed
because of
venues
all
before.
the previous fails. So this is interesting, I think. So there's 42 venues that we use for the Tokyo Olympics. Every venue must have the Olympic flag flying conspicuously at the front.
Yes.
There must be full power backup for every venue for security and media reasons. The lighting in the venue must be split 50-50 between two different power sources so that if one goes down, the games can still continue.
Yeah, okay.
And then all of the specifics about the actual setup of each sport is mandated by the International Federation for each sport. So like, International Federation for canoeing or whatever will mandate, they'll have their own document saying, we need 230 meters, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be 60 meters wide,
Yeah.
And so they have to comply with that when they're building the venues. And then, so the last main thing, which I think you'll find particularly interesting, is the International Broadcast Centre. So this needs to be created or built in every city. And the Olympics Committee have created a separate entity, which is called the Olympics Broadcasting Service, which in short is OBS. And it was established in 2008, and they're the host broadcaster for all games. So there's no cameras from other broadcasters. They're the only people who have cameras and mics and stuff like that in the actual venues. And OBS is responsible for each event, and they produce content that every other broadcaster uses. NBC, ABC, Channel 9, whatever. They use the content created by OBS. And so broadcasters may be at the events, and they may talk over the feeds, but they don't have control over the feeds.
Yeah, okay.
So they basically they get piped.
And so that's why we were watching, like a couple of weeks ago, we were watching the ping pong, but it was just this super wide shot of just the stadium.
Yeah.
And that's all
I guess
they
that's
had.
all, whatever we were watching. What was that?
Yeah.
Channel 7 or something?
Yeah, and it was table tennis, but
That's
it was
all they
just a
got
blank. It was just a blank.
Yeah.
It was just a very wide shot.
Yeah.
With no games actually happening.
Yeah.
And just people walking around for, I don't know, 2 hours. They just had that just as a stream.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. And so OBS is an independent company. There's 166 employees, but during the games, they employ 8,100 people.
Obviously not enough people to zoom in on a game.
At the event, there's usually around 6,000 journalists. And their aim for the Tokyo Olympics was to create 9,500 hours of content, which is more than they've ever created.
Yes.
They use 1,050 cameras and 3,600 mics.
And did you see that TikTok account too?
Do they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's funny.
So each individual venue of the 42, the cameras are cut individually in the venue. So let's say we're doing table tennis, and there's 3 cameras. They're all cut in the venue. So there's a team in the venue that produce it and cut it there, direct it.
Yeah.
And then that feed is then sent back to the International Broadcast Centre. In the International Broadcast Centre, they create for this Tokyo Olympics, they created up to 64 different feeds for the different companies and broadcasters and countries and stuff from that, which then goes back to the individual broadcaster, say it's NBC, and then they have their commentators there that are commentating over top of their feed that they've been given. And so another way the main way that they create revenue for OBS is they rent out space to broadcasters in the International Broadcast Centre. So the IOC stipulates that the International Broadcast Centre needs to have this requirements, needs to be this big, this many rooms, blah, blah, blah. And then the OBS, which is the Olympic Broadcast Services, the independent company, they rent out office space for all of these 6,000 people.
So like Channel 7 or whatever would go and set up in there.
Exactly.
And
so here's some interesting costs that I think you'll find interesting. If you'd like your own private office in the OBS space, which is 25 meters squared, it's going to cost you $5,000 USD.
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad for the full duration of the game. $5,000. Like if you're, Channel 7, that's nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you want 2 wall plugs to plug your stuff in, extra $800.
They get you on the extras.
If you want high-speed internet connection, which you obviously would,
Yeah, well, yeah.
$19,000.
You can't commentate if you don't have high-speed internet.
If you want some radios,
So you get an empty room for
$400.
$5,000.
Yeah, you do. $400. If you want a folding table, $67. If you want this is all in the document. If you want a microwave, $100. If you want an electric kettle, $25. And if you want real-time results, $10,000.
Real-time results? Well, of course you want real-time results. We're gonna put it on our news channel 2 days late.
Who won? We don't know. We didn't pay the $10,000.
That's all we can afford. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
They really get you on the extras.
They do.
Yeah.
So the initial budget for Tokyo was $7.3 billion. The estimated cost is $30 billion. The cost of delay is estimated to be $2.8 billion. And
Because they've delayed it for a whole... Did they delay it for a whole year?
Yeah, I think approximately a year. I'm not sure the actual date. And additional $1 billion cost for the COVID-19 measures required, giving out masks, all the signage, all that kind of stuff.
Makes sense.
And so the last one is basically just to say that in 2032, the Brisbane Summer Olympics are going to happen. So Brisbane's got the Summer Olympics in 2032 is what I should have said.
Yep.
And the other bidders for that was also Germany in India, and they lost.
Wow.
So
Australia, let's go.
there you go.
Yeah.
So Olympics.
Let's go. Let's go to Brisbane.
It's definitely not a buy from me.
It's definitely not. Yeah, it's a bit speculative.
I'll be watching it.
It was nice to do something different though. It's cool to have just different random like things. Like we can just talk about random things that aren't companies or cars. So it's good.
I'm glad you liked it.
No, it was good. It was a nice little change.
That's the Olympics.
That is the Olympics. So we're going to move on to this is a fun little segment.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to be doing
About time.
I'm going to be doing it's actually my fifth largest holding. I think at the time when I was doing the last one, my last one was also my fifth largest holding. But then
what
I
did
said
you do last time?
Palantir.
Palantir was your fifth largest. Now this is your fifth largest.
Now this is my fifth largest. I think it's...
because Palantir went down so much.
Well, let's not talk about that.
That's funny.
So we're going to be doing Shopify.
Okay.
And you know me, Nathan. I like to start with a little founder story. So
Yes.
this one's good. I actually went back to the old Guy Raz.
Oh, yeah. He did the interview, right?
Yeah, so I was actually
with
listening to
Toby.
it on the way here.
Yeah.
So it was good stuff. So yeah, Toby Lutke is the founder, and he's a German guy.
What's his last name?
Lutke?
Oh, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Lutke, palahepatitis. Little inside joke about Chamath.
I'm pretty sure Chamath doesn't have an S on the end of his name.
All right, well, you pronounce his last name.
No, it's Palahapitiya.
Palahepatitis, yep, I knew that.
But I've definitely been saying it how you just said it every other time.
Yeah, well, I've been listening to you.
Exactly. And as everyone else. So probably everyone's calling him that now.
Probably.
Yeah.
So anyway, he
sorry.
back to the little founder
Back to what you
story.
were saying.
So Tobias Lutke, Toby,
Toby,
Toby L, we can say.
As we call him.
He good old Toby L. So he met his Canadian wife on a ski trip on a ski field in Canada.
Okay. Where do you meet his other wives?
Well, because I said Canadian wife.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's his only wife.
Okay.
And as far as I know,
Okay.
I don't know him personally.
Is he Canadian?
He is German.
Oh, you said that, didn't you?
Yeah, so he's
sorry.
German, and he met his Canadian wife on the ski field.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. They actually ended up keeping in touch. She finished her bachelor's degree,
Okay.
moved to Germany,
Yep.
and stayed with him for 10 months.
Wow.
Then she was like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to Canada,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do my master's degree.
Okay.
Do you want to come with me?
Okay.
And so he was just like, yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he actually worked for a German company
Okay.
called Siemens.
Perfect. Nothing strange about that name.
Nothing strange about that name at all. And so he was like, I don't know, 19, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And he was quickly finding that like he wasn't really into the corporate life.
Oh, yeah.
But
okay.
his team was very... So he was solving software problems all day.
Yep.
and he was finding that the flow of the software problems and the uniqueness of all of the issues were really making him engaged.
Oh, okay.
So he was
yeah.
able to really get something out of that.
Okay.
And he also found that his boss and like his team, they didn't wear they worked in the basement. They didn't wear suits. They were very loose,
a bit casual,
despite
non-corporate.
Despite company policy, which said you had to wear a suit
Oh,
and
cool.
all this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
So he really liked that.
He fit in with that.
So he liked that.
Okay.
And he was also diagnosed with ADD. So he's like that kind of personality where he doesn't really want to follow the rules.
Okay.
So yeah, he was over in a ski on a ski trip on a holiday, and then she moved to Germany. He ended up moving to Canada. Yeah. Living in her parents' house. And
they both moved back to Canada.
They both moved back to Canada.
In her parents' house.
Yeah, in her parents' house.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
And so he was in the process of getting his permanent residency.
That's a funny thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And so they were talking about how it's like, oh yeah, this is a bit weird. And then he was just like, yeah, like I couldn't live with anyone else's parents, but these people were like really good to live with.
Canadians are very polite.
Yeah. And so he was saying that it was like
I think Germans aren't notoriously polite.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
So
not that I like Germans though.
Yeah, well, you got to be straightforward. You're very
That's
straightforward.
Right. I like that about Germans.
You're very straightforward.
You know what they think.
You definitely know what they're thinking. So yeah, he was in the process of getting his permanent residency, and he wasn't able to get a job. Yeah. But he was able to start a business. Okay. So he could either.
That's a strange loophole.
Yeah. So he could either work for a German company remotely, right? Which is what he'd done before. Yeah. And they were open to doing remote, all that kind of thing. Okay. Which in 2002-ish
very progressive.
Is very progressive for then. And it was literally, I think he said that he'd done remote before, but it was all, it was too hard because there was only email. Like there's no Slack, there's no Microsoft Teams. No. It's literally just emails, no video calls, that kind of thing.
That's right.
So yeah, it's a lot of trust as well. Yep. But yeah, he said he didn't really like working remotely for someone else's business, and he wasn't able to get a job. But his lawyer said, hey, but you can start another business. You can start a business if you want to. Okay. So that's what he decided to do. Awesome. So he got really into snowboarding. Yes. Really liked the... So he thought, instead of like skiing, I'm going to try just snowboarding for this whole trip that I'm doing here. Ended up getting really into snowboarding. Right. So in 2004, he launched...
Have you ever snowboarded?
I haven't ever snowboarded.
Have you ever skied?
I have skied, yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Try snowboarding?
Yeah, I'd love to give it a go.
I have both skied and snowboarded.
What did you like more?
I think I like skiing, but I don't really like either.
Yeah, fair enough. You don't have to like being in the snow. Like certain people really really love it. Yes. So like you can tell if you don't really like it, then it's like okay, well just don't pay all the money to go. Yes,
a lot of money for something that I don't like doing that much.
Yes, yeah. So it's not really worth it for you then.
No, it's not.
So he started an online snowboard store called Snow Devil.
Snow Devil.
So so he later realized, so like a little bit into it, he realized that the software was actually worth a lot more than the snowboarding brand. Oh. So he realized that he could actually create a piece of software to help e-commerce sales. Yeah. And then he could go and consult with people and talk about his software and say, hey, let me build you a website, basically, which allows you to put your products up there, and I'll get you more sales because people are online now.
Yes, because at this point, everyone's just in-store sales.
Yeah, and this is 2004.
2004, yeah, maybe eBay, something.
Yeah, and most people are just on in-store sales. Yep. So based on that, from that springboarded him into launching the proper Shopify product, which launched in 2006. Okay. And he's been the official CEO, because I think it's been like an official proper company since 2008. So so that's when he kind of...
That's a while.
That's when he kind of came into the
13 years?
Yeah, so I guess it took him from 2004 to 2006 to develop the product, and then obviously proper incorporated, all that kind of thing in 2008. Yeah. That's when he got the title CEO. Yes. So the headquarters is based in Ottawa. Yep. And which is where he moved to with his. I
think is that the capital of Canada? Everyone thinks it's Vancouver, but it's not.
I thought it was Toronto, but I have no idea.
I'll look it up.
You look it up.
I've been to an embassy there to get
Ottawa, Ontario. Is there a capital of each? What's it called?
Ottawa is the capital of Canada.
There you go.
Yeah, so I had to go there and get my working visa for the US.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people do that. A lot of international people in the US have to jump out to Canada or Mexico to get the visa. Yeah. So he really wanted his a lot of his like purpose was for merchants to get a direct relationship with their customers.
Yeah.
And the reason that he kept it, because like his whole dream with going to Canada was to go to the US because the US was like that's like, that's where all the tech stuff happens.
Yeah.
Then he realized, his quote is, he thought that Canada is the America for Europeans.
Oh,
okay. So a little bit,
a
little bit more,
sure.
less brash, more dignified.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's his whole.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's his whole thing.
That's true.
So there's a couple of little quotes that I've thrown in here from him.
Great.
So here's the first one. It's I have a weird obsession with optimizing things. When I was walking to elementary school, I used to count the number of steps on each route and work out which one was shortest. So that was when he was a kid.
That's cool.
Then later on, it goes to, if I have to do something once, that's fine. If I have to do it twice, then I'm kind of annoyed.
Yeah.
If I have to do it 3 times, I'm going to try and automate it.
Yeah.
So that's a really good philosophy for how he runs his businesses.
That's great.
So Toby's ownership of Shopify.
Yeah.
He his current net worth is now 13.3 billion USD.
Wow.
And 11.5 of that is his 6% stake in his own company. So which he's also the largest holder of anyone in. So
Wow.
pretty good.
I know.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool like platform.
Yeah,
and
it's
a lot
great.
of people. It's an interesting one because a lot of people that don't know business or don't know tech probably wouldn't have heard of it. Like a lot of people don't actually really know what.
Yep.
It's not the same as Microsoft, which has a big following.
Yeah, it's not a household name.
It's very understated.
Yes, I agree.
So it's literally merchants that have looked for solutions to build websites on.
Because pretty easily you can take the branding off and it just looks like your own website.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So it's got 7,000 employees as of the end of 2020.
Okay.
So it's fairly lightweight for its size, I think. It's business. All right, we're going to go into the kind of timeline of the business, when they introduced everything. So it's like it follows on from the founder story into what they launched.
Incredible.
So 2008 was their original product.
Yep.
So this is the simple online stores for a subscription model.
Yep.
This now has 1.7 million businesses on that platform.
Wow. 1.7 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was 2008. 2009, Shopify launched its App Store.
Okay.
So this is a simple API for developers to build their own functional Shopify apps.
Yep.
So the App Store is a full marketplace for merchants to buy apps from.
Yep.
And developers to upload apps to.
Yep.
So Shopify launched this with a 20% fee on all app purchases.
Mm-hmm.
So they made 20% every time a merchant purchased
That's
a
not
developer.
as much as Apple. Apple like 30%, right?
Yeah, 30%.
Yeah, okay.
So that was their original fee.
Yeah.
Now, because Shopify is very much, I think it's a very good company in terms of supporting the little guy.
Yes.
So it's obviously it's got that anti-Amazon mindset.
Yeah.
Arm the rebels is the kind of little bit of a catchphrase that goes with it.
Yeah, right.
So it's, I mean, I don't think that's an official thing at all, but
yes,
it's like it's kind of what people say about Shopify.
Okay, do they?
So the Shopify app actually, it was 20% on all app purchases. Now the Shopify App Store, as of the 29th of June 2021, they've decided to remove fees for the first 1 million in revenue for developers.
Oh, that's cool.
So all developers will now make 100% of everything they make under $1 million.
Yes.
Then they'll make 15% over $1 million. So they've cut from
Shopify.
20.
Okay, they take 15%. Over
So they've cut from 20% to 15% of everything over $1 million.
Yes.
So not only did they cut out all of the revenue they were making for the first $1 million, they've now dropped 5%.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
I think that's a really good mentality. I think it'll encourage more people to develop on Shopify as well.
I agree.
Like I think it could be. So they've currently got 7,000 developers on Shopify apps.
Yes.
So 7,000 products have been launched in the App Store, and I think that it's like, okay, if we cut all of our fees and that kind of thing, someone who was making a Chrome extension or an Apple app or anything like that now can say, actually, I'm going to pivot this and put it on a Shopify, make an API for Shopify, you know, and then, you know, they might get 14,000 next year. You know, it could be, it could be a real pivoting point.
That's awesome.
In 2013, they launched their point of sale system.
Ah, yes.
So this is pretty cool. I didn't actually know they had a point of sale.
I have seen this on the website, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, okay. So in-store sales, this is in 2013, in-store sales increased an average of 30% year over year using a Shopify POS.
Oh, wow.
So
POS being point of sale.
Point of sale, yeah. So it's been refreshed in 2020 with an all-new black iPad system.
Oh, cool.
But the higher growth is partially due to the integration between the online and the in-store.
Yeah.
So it allows you to order online, pick up in-store, as well as ordering in-store, have it sent home.
Yep, okay.
As well as that,
cool.
It gives more insights. It gives a smart grid interface.
Yeah.
It gives easy inventory management.
Oh, wow, really?
And that's across all of the sales channels.
Yeah.
And it's basically its own version of like Square.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they're doing
that's the thing,
there.
isn't it? Coming to that point, like they're definitely their biggest competitor.
Yeah, for sure. So 2013, they also launched Shopify Payments.
Okay.
So this means that merchants could directly accept Visa, MasterCard, and American Express instead of plugging in a third-party gateway. So that's what they used to have to do.
Oh,
before
what year was that?
2013.
Okay.
So it's surprisingly recent.
Which they use Stripe, right?
Well, no, it's Shopify Payments.
It's their own thing.
Yeah, it's called Shopify Payments.
Okay.
So essentially, this means that
I thought they used Stripe.
it's essentially their own version of Stripe.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. That's sick.
And so Shopify merchants on the payments, on their regular plan, so they pay 2.9% plus 30 cents of every purchase. That's on their starter plan.
Yep.
And then on their unlimited plan, they pay 2.2% plus 30 cents.
Yep.
And the advantage here is that those rates are guaranteed. So there's no additional merchant fees for using American Express.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like there would be normally if you set up an American Express, then it's like, actually we take an extra 2% on top of that fee, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So it's all just covered by Shopify. They just pay for whatever, and they just charge you 2.9 or 2.2.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, that's really cool. 2014, they launched Shopify Plus.
Okay, what's that?
So this is actually considered their enterprise solution.
Oh.
So that's what that's the way that they market it.
Okay.
So they've currently got Nestle. They've got I've included a bunch of brands here that you may or may not have heard of. I included a lot of the ones that I have heard of or have kind of looked up and seen. Okay, I know what that is now.
Yes.
So, and there's also 10,000 of them.
Oh.
But they've got Nestle Kylie, which is by Kylie Jenner.
Okay, yeah.
Gymshark, JB Hi-Fi, Jenny Craig, Culture Kings, Honey Birdette, Allbirds, Staples, 2 Chainz, the rapper, has his store on Shopify Plus, Magnolia Market, Muscle Nation, Death Wish Coffee, and there's 10,000 other large brands.
I've heard of some of them.
So
JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah, JB Hi-Fi. Pretty funny.
Okay.
So 22% of Shopify's subscription revenue came specifically from the monthly recurring revenue subscription to Shopify Plus.
25% of their total revenue.
22, yeah.
22, okay.
So it doesn't actually have a specific actual price though.
Yeah.
So it just says 2,000 plus as is the bucket.
Because it's tailored towards the individual company.
Yeah, and it's also such a large scale. It has to run on such a large scale that it has to work for, you know, those people.
Yes.
So yeah, it's actually it's like also like you get assigned a relationship manager and all that kind of thing. There's 10,000
10,000 of these clients.
Of these Shopify Plus clients.
Yeah.
And then that's
so does Shopify Plus just mean that they tailor it more specifically towards the client's needs?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I
so
think
they work more with them personally to make it work. Yeah,
I think you get your own. Yeah, you get your own like manager of it.
Yeah. Because Shopify itself, obviously, like Isaac and I, we've used a little bit, and it's beautiful and it's really easy to use, but it's not super flexible. Like, unless you know how to code it yourself, it's definitely restrictive in regards to what you can do. And so I assume for a big brand like,
they would help
Kylie
them
Jenner
build it
or
themselves.
JB
Yeah.
Hi-Fi, they get to actually have a say in regards to how it's built. So
There'd
that's cool.
also be a bit of a deal in terms of you're not going to pay 2.2% of
Yeah.
every sale plus 30 cents. It's like when you're bringing in, you're saying, hey, I'm Kylie Jenner and I have a $2 billion makeup brand.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be making, $100,000 in sales every day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay you $2,000
makes a big difference
in those sales,
No, exactly right.
So it's like, it's going to be, they're going to say, oh, okay, well, we're going to do 0.5% or something like that. Like they're going to make an individual deal with that client.
Yes.
They're going to have a manager of it.
Yep.
They're going to say, are you happy with your deal?
Yep.
They're going to say, I'll get you these 5 software devs that are just going to work on your site.
Yes.
That kind of thing,
Exactly right.
So like,
That's cool.
make sure it's all up and running all the time as well. Stuff like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think the whole idea of Shopify Plus as well, they have a little bit of a section which said something basically along the lines of, let us be your tech company. Don't start a tech company when you want to have your e-commerce brand, right?
Yeah.
We're your tech company.
Yep.
Where you're on call, tech support. So
That's cool.
That's kind of
That's really sick.
yeah. So and it makes a lot of sense too because like
It does make a lot of sense.
you don't want to hire your own full service staff.
No.
When you can have a way cheaper option
Yes.
to use that Shopify Plus.
Yes.
So 2015. So that was in 2014 they
That was
launched that.
2014, yep.
2015 they launched multi-channel Shopify, which means customers could use Facebook Shop, Pinterest, and Amazon as well
Since
as others.
2015.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they that's when they launched the multi-channel solution. That's kind of what they've called it.
Yep.
2015 they also launched Shopify Shipping.
Oh.
Which is merchants can now buy and print discounted shipping labels
Yes.
directly with the Shopify platform.
Yes.
And it's integrated with the USPS, which is US Postal Service.
Yes.
That was useful for the 175,000 merchants at the time.
Yep.
Merchants would receive rates of up to 60% off retail sales.
That's great.
So that's obviously very US based.
Yes.
I don't there's a little bit of Shopify shipping from what we've seen so far. There's
Yeah. Well, we use Sendle here.
but I think that what it's saying is that's what it plugs into. That's kind of how that works. Also, 175,000. Now they're at 1.7 million. They've 10x since 2015, which is really cool in terms of customers.
Yep.
Now this one's really cool. 2016 they launched Shopify Capital.
Okay.
So Shopify uses machine learning to remove barriers to entrepreneurship. That's what they've titled the kind of the point of what they're doing there.
Yeah.
So Shopify has loaned $2 billion in funding to entrepreneurs
Really?
over the last, it's been 5 years now, so
It is
that was
Square.
2016.
Square do that too.
Yeah, so I was definitely thinking that is a Square thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was actually thinking as I was started this segment, I was like, it would be cool if they did something like Square, they loaned money
because they know all the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they already do that, so
They do.
there you go.
There you
so
go. I didn't know that.
They're a step ahead.
That's cool.
So the maximum loan size previously was $1 million, and as of April 2021, they've increased it to $2 million to further boost growth.
Yep.
Shopify Capital made $363 million in Q2 revenue.
Whoa.
So just in Q2.
Yep.
Which means it's about $1 billion a year or over $1 billion a year just from Shopify Capital in revenue. Which is up 137% since last.
How do they make that
Q2.
money? Just from interest.
Yeah, just interest, I guess.
Wow.
So, I don't know the exact business model of it, but
That's the assumption.
Yeah, so Shopify Capital made up 32% of the revenue for this quarter through the merchant.
32%.
Yeah, so it's merchant.
Whoa.
Merchant cash advantages. Merchant cash advances and loans.
Yeah.
So 32%, pretty cool.
That's huge.
So something they launched in 2016 is now a third of their a third of their revenue, which is cool.
Wow.
So 2017 was Shopify's platform expansion.
Okay.
So they expanded to eBay and Instagram.
Ah, yes.
So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Yep.
2017 also Shopify launches ShopPay, which is it's like a purple icon.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this one appears to be an alternative to Apple Pay or Stripe. And this one is something that saves and encrypts customers' card details.
Yep.
and makes payments seamless and frictionless.
I guess it's kind of emulating the whole one-click payment things on Amazon.
Yeah.
You just like, I want this, pay, done.
And it remembers your details and everything like that, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good.
So that one is also it's like Apple Pay and Stripe, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like Afterpay.
Okay.
So it allows customers to make purchases and spread them out over a longer period of
Oh,
time.
really?
So that's something I didn't know about it.
Wow.
So that feature of spreading out payments and was added later.
Yeah.
So it wasn't added in 2017, but has been added recently. And it's by a partnership with a company called Affirm.
Okay.
So that was 2017.
2017, yeah.
And the next thing that happened was 2018. Shopify goes international.
Okay.
So this is when Shopify launched multilingual options in the store. They launched 6 languages.
Wow.
I won't tell you what they are, but
don't tell me.
they allowed for international commerce solutions.
Like Australian.
Foreign, yeah. Like foreign, well, I believe that they were only operating in the US, UK,
Okay.
and like Canada and Australia, like English-speaking countries.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, pretty cool that they're
That's awesome.
went international.
Makes sense.
And 2019, they launched the Shopify Fulfillment Network.
Okay.
So in 2019, the company pledged to spend over $1 billion over the next 5 years to expand fulfillment capabilities.
Right.
So they've got their own fulfillment network, which is cool. So I didn't know that either.
No, neither.
So they're planning to get 2-day shipping to 99% of Americans.
Whoa.
So
That's so sick.
they're planning to beat Amazon basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And,
Amazon can do like 40-minute shipping, but
Yeah, but I mean, not here.
It's like 11 days here.
Yeah.
It's like 11 days in a capital city.
I ordered some stuff like a long time ago. I'm still waiting on it. It's a pandemic. So so they're keen to get the 2-day shipping to the 99% of Americans.
Right.
In a comment since then, Thomas Epting, who is the director of Shopify Fulfillment, said that COVID-19 has pushed e-commerce forward by 10 years. So
Wow.
that's
That's probably right.
Yeah, that's his opinion on that.
Okay.
2020 platform expansion. So they integrate with Walmart, Facebook shops, and I know that they already had Facebook, but further with like Facebook shops. I think what that means is Instagram stores. So yeah, I mean, because Instagram is a brand of Facebook, obviously.
Yes.
Integrates with TikTok and Alipay as well. Okay. So there you go.
That's really cool.
So that's Shopify.
Alipay.
Alipay. Yeah, it's an interesting.
That's good.
I think China are actually quite ahead in terms of payments. Like they pay with a QR code, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So so that's quite cool.
That's awesome.
So onto their kind of that was their like kind of timeline. Onto their products.
Yeah.
And the product revenue. So merchants, they've got basically the way that they break it down is in 2 ways.
Yeah.
Merchants and subscription products.
Okay.
So I couldn't get an exact split on how much more they make from merchants.
Yeah.
But merchants is literally the split of that fee that they take. So that 2% fee on each.
Oh, it's a separate. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the 2% fee on each purchase, and that appears to be 70% of their revenue.
Yeah. Okay.
And roughly 70%. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that's expected because if they're charging, say, $30-$40 a month, people are going to be surely they're going to be making more from the 2%.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes
and they
sense.
want people to do well, so they'll charge them a low subscription.
Yep.
And make more off the off that kind of spread.
That's right. Everyone wins.
And so their subscription products, their basic subscription is $29 a month.
Yep.
Shopify is what this next one is called.
This is USD, right?
Yeah, US. Shopify is what the next one is called.
Okay.
And that one is $79 a month.
Wow, it jumps up. Okay.
Shopify Advanced is $299 a month.
Whoa.
And Shopify Plus is 10,000 customers, 2,000 plus.
2,000 plus, yep.
So the onto the competitive environment, they make.
Okay, yeah.
We just waited just to clarify what happened there.
Okay.
We waited for me to calculate it. I calculated it clearly wrong, and then decided not to say the number.
What's the number? Just tell us.
No. I refuse to do public maths.
It's true. You can't do it under pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it was something that I meant to prepare earlier, but I just obviously didn't. So that was my own downfall.
Yes.
But they have a really strong competitive market position.
Okay. Yes,
So,
I agree with that.
yes. So they're on their own graph, on their own source. So I don't know exactly. But it's according to eMarketer is the official source, but
Okay.
in their own investor presentation.
Yeah.
They have 8.6% of US retail e-commerce sales
Oh, wow.
in 2020.
That's crazy.
So Amazon has 39%.
Yeah, right.
They've got 8.6.
That's good.
Walmart is the third
Yeah.
at 5.8%.
Yeah.
eBay is 4.9%.
Yeah.
And Apple is 3.5%.
Yeah.
And then it goes Home Depot at 2.1 and
Okay.
just a bunch of lower Target,
Yeah.
Kroger, Costco, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
8.6%. So they're second
Okay.
in place of
That's
behind
very impressive.
behind Amazon at 39%.
Yes.
But obviously breathing down Amazon's neck.
Yes.
At the massive growth rate they're doing.
Yes.
It's pretty impressive. So onto that actual growth rate.
Onto it.
We'll get there, So they're so they've got 7,000 apps on their app store, which each of those is basically a business
Yeah.
who has a developer who has gone and made something
Yeah, they're solving a problem.
and
or,
is probably making
Yeah.
a couple of $1 million off people
well,
who
potentially.
are potentially. Well, I mean, the fact that they cut all of the revenue for under $1 million
Yes.
means that they're
there's
probably
obviously
making
enough there making the money. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
That's right.
some of them are making a couple of $1 million,
Yep.
and they're encouraging the other ones to make more.
Yes. That's fair.
By giving them a bigger split.
Yep.
So so according to the breakdown in the results, 61% of their revenue comes from the core product, which is their standard beginner package. Sorry, 61% of their subscription revenue comes from
The
their-
first $29 one.
it comes from their standard and beginner packages.
Yeah.
For Shopify's monthly recurring revenue model.
Wow, what percent?
And,
60 something percent.
Yeah, 60%, but that's
60%
of
of their
the
subscription.
of the subscription part.
Yeah, I gotcha.
22% comes from Shopify Plus monthly recurring revenue,
Okay.
and 17% comes from apps, themes, domains, and Shopify Plus platform fee revenue.
Yeah.
So, so that's the subscription part of it.
Yep.
Their quarter two revenue was $1.1 billion, which is up 57%.
Whoa.
So.
It's awesome. That
Pretty
makes
cool.
a lot of sense.
And so their total yearly TTM, which is trailing 12 month.
Yep.
So that's quarter 3, 2020, quarter 4, 2020,
Yeah.
and then quarter 1, quarter
and
2.
two, yeah.
Just for a little explanation.
No, that's good. like the
So their
explanation.
total TTM revenue is $3.8 billion,
Okay.
which is an earnings of $2.45 billion. So they're looking at a margin of 63%.
Wow.
Which is pretty astonishing. Makes me want to buy more because it's
That's good. I mean, to a
it's
certain
impressive.
extent, it makes sense. What's that? I mean, their costs are personnel, and I suppose a huge portion is advertising, marketing.
yeah.
But how much marketing do they need to do? Like, they're,
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously some, but like, they're doing well.
Well, we'll compare that with last year, where so this is the equivalent period.
Yep.
So July 2018 to June 2019.
Yep.
So compared with that, they had a loss of 77 million. So a loss of 77 million to a profit of 2.45 billion
Whoa.
is an incredible achievement.
Wow.
So yeah, massive difference.
That's sick.
Valuation. So their current price is $1,545 a share.
Oh, wow. They need to do a split.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, they're too hard to buy. They're not very,
It looks expensive to those who aren't valuing it properly.
Yeah, for sure. So it makes their market cap 190 billion.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive for little old Shopify.
Yeah.
And that makes the current price to earnings ratio 76. So they're growing earnings at 82% per annum for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Compare that with Square, which has a PE ratio of 216.
Whoa.
It doesn't seem as ridiculous. So 76 is Shopify.
217 for the same ratio?
Yeah, so
And their
Square has
growth is nowhere near
Square
Shopify.
has Yeah, a 216 PE, but they have earnings at 74% PA for the last 5 years.
Yeah, right.
So
And that's just their crypto holdings.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So you would know you were a big Square shareholder.
Not anymore.
I've compared.
I
with,
also used to own Shopify.
there you go.
Don't anymore.
Maybe you need to again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this convinces you.
Not $1,000. Jeez.
Yeah, well, 1,500.
Yeah.
And it's USD. So I've also gone and compared Apple, which has a PE of 28,
Okay.
and that's growing earnings at 9.6% per annum for 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you think about, once again, Shopify's was 76,
Yes.
and they're growing at 82%.
Yep.
Versus Apple at 28, and they're growing at
Yeah.
9.6%.
Yeah.
It's really not that bad of a valuation.
Yes.
Consider, it's a tech company. Yes, it would look crazy
Yeah.
if this is 2010, and it's got a PE ratio of 76. You're like, what's going on there?
Yes.
But stuff wasn't growing at 80%.
But can they sustain that growth?
Yeah, it's a good question. But also, it's like, at some point, it catches up. Where is the point where it catches up to your ideal valuation?
Yeah.
And where is the point where it comes down to, where it's like, okay, I've still made a massive profit.
Yeah.
Share price has fallen 50%. I'm
Yeah.
still way up. You know,
that's true.
So it's like not a huge issue. And what's the point where I start making dividends, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a long term, really long term holder.
Okay.
I was going to talk about the Udi guy, Dave. What's his name?
Who?
Udi. You know Udi.
Oh, Udi man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Udi man.
He made his millions on Shopify, didn't he?
Yeah. So I think he started in 2020 at some time.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
It is pretty new. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be 2020.
Literally designed a blanket crossed with a hoodie.
Yeah,
And
it's
called it an
what
hoodie.
it is.
It's a poncho.
It is a poncho crossed with what a lot of surfers use when they're getting changed to the beach.
True.
Crossed with a hoodie, crossed with a blanket. It makes a lot of sense. It is actually a really good idea. Isaac doesn't like it because he's jealous.
That's true. I wish I was making that much on Shopify.
But I'm like objective enough to understand.
Yeah.
That it's
you're
actually
the
good.
level-headed one.
I'm not emotional.
I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't like it. Like I do appreciate how clever he is, but it is annoying.
Okay.
Okay. What do you mean? You can't say it's not annoying. No, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
No, he's pretty cool. So he also has he's got the calming blankets. So they're just
I
weighted
haven't looked
blankets.
into them.
But he's branded it as
What
calming.
makes them calming?
Well, he's branded it as calming.
Yeah.
And he wants it to be like how Band-Aid is synonymous with bandage.
That's
and
right.
Yeah, so he's designed it in a way, because calming blanket isn't a real word. Like,
No.
that's a brand.
Yes.
So he wants people to look up calming blanket.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty clever. Like
It is actually really clever.
the fact that, because I didn't know that calming blanket was a brand.
I didn't know calming blanket was a thing.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people will hear,
Yeah.
oh, what have you got? Oh, a calming blanket.
A calming
Oh,
blanket.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
It sounds like a type of product,
Yes.
but it's actually a brand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
that's good.
And then they go home, Google calming blanket. They
Yeah.
don't Google weighted blanket.
No.
Yeah, so that's his whole plan there.
Okay, right.
So it's pretty clever. He's also got a furniture store and
Yes.
a couple of other
Yeah,
random
other
projects.
stuff with other people, yeah.
But yeah, pretty inspirational stuff. So
It's good, yeah.
you can get pretty far. There's also that annoying kid on YouTube, Bizaria or something, diarrhea. So he makes a lot of Shopify
He does.
content.
He does.
You'll find
In America, though, it's a whole new world.
You'll find 50,000 different gurus.
The special thing about the Udi guy is that he's Australian.
Yeah, that's
which
what
is-
made it cool. Yeah,
That's what makes it really special. Because, there's probably a million of that guy in America.
yeah,
But to do that in Australia is quite impressive.
yeah. And to make that much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he made 250 million in
heaps
the
of
last
money.
year.
Yeah. Geez, that seems like a lot.
I think it is. I think it's
Okay.
literally that. I don't know.
That's crazy.
We'll correct the figure.
We might not.
Actually, give us a comment on Apple Podcast. Send us an Instagram DM and make sure to dislike the YouTube video if the number is wrong.
Yes. Just react in some way.
Yeah, react in some way. No, I like to keep a perfect ratio on the YouTube likes to dislikes. 100%, please. So make sure you like it. and then comment your distaste. So competitors, what does Square do better? Point of sale payments.
They do point of sale very well.
So that's definitely something that, I mean, maybe I'm biased in terms of, I haven't got data to back it up, but I'm definitely biased in terms of Australia.
Yeah.
They definitely do point of sale better
They
because
do it
I've
well.
never seen a Shopify
No.
branded thing.
No.
Also, Shopify wouldn't want to brand their own point of sale system
Yeah.
because they're very under the radar as well.
Yeah.
So that's a huge drawback of having a very secretive kind of brand.
Yeah.
At the same time, Square doesn't have a lot of branding. It's also very under the radar in terms of
Now, Square also have the hardware.
yeah.
You know that's like a Square tap thing.
But Shopify's thing is a hardware piece
Really?
as well. Yeah, that's why it's
Okay.
yeah, because I've never seen one,
No,
but
neither.
I assume it's bigger in the US.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Square have great invoicing.
yes,
Just saying.
yeah,
I haven't seen that anywhere on Shopify.
true. So Square have additional services, so
Yeah,
they're
so
kind of
many.
like a neobank in that way.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So obviously they're getting Afterpay.
Yeah.
They got Cash App.
Yeah.
So they have a full range of integrated banking services.
Yeah, that's right.
Which Shopify are just something for merchants.
Yes.
So in a way, Shopify is too niche.
Yeah.
So an area of expansion would obviously be adding full like banking services, that kind of thing.
True.
But also, it's like, okay, now what are they doing? Are they spreading too far? Will they invest money in the wrong places to try and make that expansion happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also
So
logistics could be.
If on Square, if I use Cash App, then like I'm just thinking like if I'm a consumer and I use Cash App and you're own a store and you also use Square Terminal, Square Point of Sale, everything, and I buy something from you using Cash App, blah blah blah. It's just we're just all using the same ecosystem, which is Square, and we're just moving money around in Square's ecosystem. Like money never goes away from Square's ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
like
good. Yeah.
it's just it doesn't matter who has the money.
Yeah.
It's just all within the ecosystem that is Square.
Yeah, and that's why there's heaps of articles that are literally like Commonwealth Bank should be scared. This bank Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, they should be scared because Square is like a full solutions provider.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so one thing that's really cool about Square. So what we should talk about, I think, is
Let's do it.
the average spend per consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really important metric. Mm-hmm. So they've obviously got Square's got 203 million users or whatever.
Yeah.
If they can take their spend, if they've got an average spend of $50 with Square per year, right?
Yeah.
Or we were talking about it with Afterpay before, right?
Yeah.
Their average, what's Afterpay? So average monetized annual revenue is $43 per consumer.
Per consumer, yeah.
They've got 16.2 million users, right? Mm-hmm. If they can add $1 to that user by getting them to shop at a Square terminal or giving them a discount at a Square thing or getting them to use Cash App, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If they can add $1, $2, $3, they're suddenly making $45 instead of $43 on 16 million people.
Yeah.
So they're increasing their average spend per consumer.
Yes.
So that's one thing that Square's doing really well with its integrations.
Yeah.
So yeah, if obviously Shopify isn't a bank, so they don't have the ability, and they don't have their own Cash App, that kind of thing.
No, that's right. They don't have much on the consumer side of it.
But if they had that crossover,
Yeah.
it could potentially lead to more, everything that a business wants is more money per consumer.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing, as well as you don't only want to grow the number of consumers, you want to grow per unit spend.
Yeah.
We were talking about that as well with Palantir last week.
Yeah.
Their average customer went from 6 million to 8 million.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty cool. It's a great thing. Like if your business is doing that,
Yes.
it's a good investment.
It's an efficient way to make more money because you're not acquiring new customers.
You don't have to go and spend the new advertising
exactly
to go
right.
and get that the new customer.
Yeah.
So here's what Square does worse.
Okay.
Earnings of Square was 573 million for the Q2.
You're all right.
Which earnings of Shopify was 2.4 billion. But Square made 15.9 billion in revenue. So they made way more revenue. They made a 3.6% profit margin, Square, in Q2.
Wow.
So, but also
Okay.
in Square's defense,
Yeah.
they're growing pretty rapidly as well.
Yeah.
So they've also potentially a lot of that money's going towards growing their revenue base.
Yeah.
At the same time, is it just crypto gains? Who knows? Is
Yeah.
it crypto losses?
Yeah.
You know.
That's right.
So yeah.
Interesting. Is that the end?
That's my Shopify segment. I'm bullish on it.
Are you? Okay.
All right. I don't know. How do you feel now? You feeling okay?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
I think it's a good company. I just honestly feel like the big thing that sticks in my mind is like anyone who ever was going to start a Shopify store will have started it in the last 2 years. And I think they have to see slowing growth in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's because it's pulled forward their growth.
There's also there's also something in terms of cohorts. They have a cohort spend by cohort, which means they've got 2017, the people that signed up in 2017,
right.
the people that signed up in 2018, the people that signed up in 2019.
Yeah.
So their revenue per cohort
Yeah.
in 2018, so their 2018 cohort or whatever and before has grown by like more than 100% like this year.
Per cohort.
And then they've added this one, and this one. So their bar graph actually looks great. So we'll add that in there.
Yeah.
But their bar graph looks like crazy in terms of cohorts. So
Okay. And I think so.
and it's like
the concern that I have
grows every year.
Yeah. The concern that I have is that for you as a current investor who, let's say you invested 2 years ago, you don't necessarily care that it's pulled forward their interest in the business by 2 years, for example, because you were going to get that anyway. But for someone who doesn't own it, for me to buy it now, knowing that potentially the valuation is because of all of that interest that's been pulled forward, and now it's going to sort of slump in the next couple of years. I'm not saying it is, but in my mind, unless they do something drastic, it just doesn't make sense to buy. So I guess, but then it does also come back down to what you're saying is if they can acquire or produce a product that also tailors towards the consumer side, that's a whole new market that they haven't even touched. So there's much more growth there as well.
And you've also got to consider those people that say, in 2017 or 2016 or whatever, they say, what's the best financial advice you could give someone?
Yeah.
They literally say, we've already had a massive run of FANG companies.
Yeah.
Buy FANG companies, buy 5 companies.
Yeah.
Put all your money in those 5, 20% each, you know?
Yeah.
And every time that someone's said, oh, well, they've already reached their maximum. They've already reached $1 trillion. They've already reached $2 trillion.
They still continue.
You know? They're still potentially the best
and
possible
you're
bet
right.
you could make. And they're still going to outperform a massive amount.
Yes.
So, there's some level of that as well.
Yes.
There's some level of, it's at its all-time high, you know?
No, I agree. And I think if you were to invest in it, I'm not necessarily, I don't think you'd necessarily lose money, although you might. Everything has a risk. But I think, in my mind, it's just something that's been pulled forward so far that in the next 2 years, there might be other avenues of which I could invest, which might reap greater returns.
It's a genuinely better,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I get what you mean.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's good. I think it's definitely a buy if you want it. Like, I don't know. It's a good business. I didn't buy it for no reason. Okay, so car we should talk about is a Ford Bronco.
Yes.
It's a pretty old brand, the Ford Bronco itself. It's something that's been around for a while, and this year it's one of the hottest SUVs, and so it's direct competition for the Jeep Wrangler. And some similarities include it's got 2 4-door options, as in 2 and 4-door options. It's got removable top, so you can totally get rid of it. You just have like the exoskeleton vibes. It's obviously an off-road focused vehicle, and it's priced relatively similarly. So it was announced in 2020, and it's currently on sale in 2021, and prices in USD range from 30 to 60 grand. So it's a pretty big range, but they have a lot of different packages and model options, which I'll talk about in a sec. 2 engine options, both are EcoBoost. The first one is the turbo 2.3 litre 4-cylinder, which produces 300 horsepower and 420 newton meters of torque.
That's pretty impressive for a 2.4.
It is. 420 newton meters of torque is pretty good for a little 4-cylinder. And 0 to 108 seconds, which isn't particularly fast, but it's a pretty large vehicle, so that's fine. The second engine option is a turbo 2.7 litre V6, which is 330 horsepower, just an additional 30, but it's 540 newton meters of torque, which is an additional 120, which will get you to 100 in a little over 6 seconds, which is not bad, to be honest. It's not slow for that type of vehicle. I've thrown it into a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of episodes ago, I talked about, we compared different like Cybertruck alternatives. So we talked about the Rivian R1T, the GMC Hummer, the Ford F-150 Lightning, stuff like that. I've just added 2 more lines to that particular spreadsheet to just show where it sits. Obviously, it's not in the same category, but it's similar in regards to off-road vehicles. It's not a pickup, though. And so the Ford Bronco... we might even share this. It's for example, the price is top of the range is 60 grand, and so that's quite similar to the F-150 Platinum. But if you're going to get the Lightning version, the Lightning's an additional 30 grand. So it's relatively cheap in comparison. GMC Hummer's 110 grand. The Rivian looks like it's going to be about 80 grand. The Cybertruck looks like it's going to be about 70 grand. And so it's sitting in around 60 grand is not bad. Obviously, this isn't an EV. I'm not implying it is, but it's. I think it's still some form of competition for these guys. Most of them are going to come out in an automatic transmission, but you can rarely get a 7-speed manual. It is
7-speed manual.
Yes,
Wow.
7-speed manual.
Yeah.
The reason it's 7-speed is because it's got a crawler gear, which is to the left bottom.
Ah, cool.
So top left is reverse. You pull the collar up, top
Yeah.
left, and then bottom left is a crawler gear, which restricts your RPM and just gives you, increased power at low revs or whatever.
Does crawler mean that you can't stall?
Maybe. Yeah, possibly.
I'm interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the technicalities of it.
Yeah, right.
So even with the manual, it has an electric parking brake, which is a little counterintuitive when you've got the gear stick there.
Yeah, yeah.
But because there was so little number of manuals being created, they weren't going to create a new system just for the manual version.
True, yeah.
The interior isn't particularly luxurious. You can buy a luxe version, but for the most part, it's made out of durable materials because it's tailored towards, it's tailored towards the people who are going to buy the Wranglers. So it's tailored towards people who are going to take it out on the beach.
Yeah.
It's not tailored towards like someone who's like wants a luxury AMG that looks like a off-road SUV.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tailored towards someone who's going to use an off-road SUV.
Yeah, and you don't want your muddy boots all over really nice carpet.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all just like you can just wash it out and that kind of vibe. It's like the buttons are all kind of like made out of rubber, for example. So you could press them with a glove is the idea. The aircon recirculation button and the adaptive cruise control and the stability control buttons, which all usually have little generic photos of little generic images of like cars. It has like a little image of a Bronco instead, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like just an outline. There's like a bunch of exposed screws that are kind of scattered around the interior. All of those say Bronco on them, which is kind of like it's a cool touch, I think. There's a plaque, which is just behind the gear selector or gear stick, depending on what you get, transmission-wise. And it shows the location of the manufacturing and stuff like that, which is just like trying to make it a little more special. The climate controls are hard climate controls. So whereas we're seeing in a lot of the cars, you've got a touch screen, which some people don't like. Particularly, it's not tactile, which might not really be consistent with the type of person who's going to buy this car. So they've made it the hard controls again. It's knobs that you can turn.
Yeah, because you don't want to be also like, you got like muddy fingers
right.
and like you're trying to,
And the touchscreen's not working. So yeah, it's just simple. It works. And it's not trying to prove anything impressive. It's got a mode selector like a lot of four-wheel drives have. So you can go, two-wheel, four-wheel drive, high, low range, all that kind of stuff. It's got a hill descent mode, which is pretty standard in a four-wheel drive. But it has this thing called GOAT modes, which stands for goes over all terrains, which I think is a trademark thing that they've created.
GOAT mode.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And so GOAT modes, there's up to 8 versions depending on which model you purchase. You'll get more or less modes. And so the modes include normal mode, eco mode, slippery mode, mud ruts mode, sand mode, Baja mode, rock crawl mode, for example. And so there's a gauge cluster like in the middle of the screen, in the middle of the steering wheel, as you'd expect. It's got a speedometer towards the left, and then it's got a large screen in the middle. The difference between this vehicle and a lot of others is it's not really highly customizable. So you can't really edit what's on the screen. It basically just shows what it shows, which is a little unusual, but it is what it is. And to a certain extent, it's made up for by the infotainment system, which is in the center of the vehicle. It's a 12-inch screen, depending on what model you get. And from all accounts that I can see, from all reviews, it appears to be really intuitive and easy to use. So they've done really well with the infotainment system. When you start the car up, there's a little video that plays on the gauge cluster and on the infotainment screen, and it's got like these little rocks that like move.
Yeah,
and,
right.
You know, they like form like a little ball, and then it kind of all comes into this like little logo in this nature background.
Yeah.
Of like the Bronco logo.
Yeah.
It's almost like a little trailer for a movie.
Yeah, cool.
And so that plays every time you start the car.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, kind of a cool thing. There's like these little lights that sit on top of the mirrors. And they're embedded in the mirror, and so you can press a button and turn them on. And the idea of it is it's in the night, say you're in the bush or something, you can turn them on and you can see around the vehicle. You can see if there's maybe some wildlife around the vehicle or something like that. It has power ports in the front of the dash. So imagine where the dashboard meets the actual bottom of the windscreen. There's a random little flap that you can flip up, and right at the bottom of the windscreen, at the end of the dash, there's a little flap you can flip up, and it has a USB-A and USB-C port. And the idea of that is a lot of people who go full driving like having their GoPro sitting on the dash.
Oh yeah, true.
And so instead of having to run that down to, like a cigarette lighter down in the dash, they have that port there ready to go, which is cool. Shows they put a lot of thought into it. The ceiling, like above the center console, the ceiling has 6 auxiliary switches, which is kind of cool. Like when you're full driving, one of them could be like, your big lights and, your air horn, or I don't know what full drive people have.
Whatever those people have.
Yeah. And there's a few things you can remove. So you can get rid of the hard top above the front seats. That's separate. And that's a one-man job. You can get rid of, or woman. You can get rid.
Very inclusive.
Yes, thank you. You can get rid of the rear top panel. That's more of a 2-person job and difficult to store. It's quite a large panel. And then you can remove the rear section above the boot space as well. So you can end up with just kind of like a cage look, like a Wrangler. From some LA person driving around in a Wrangler in a movie that you've seen or something. You can also take the doors off, and the windows are frameless. So like your BMW has frameless windows, right?
Hey, yeah, very
and
fancy.
The problem that we always have is that when you open the door, if you don't wait, it catches on the rubber, right?
Yeah.
This also has the same problem, but it's brand new.
It's good to hear they've really put a lot of thought into that one.
Yeah. So when you open the door, I've seen a bunch of videos of reviews and stuff. When you open the door, the actual glass kind of like moves because it's just hit the rubber and it hasn't had time to go down, which is a bit crappy, but it is what it is.
Well, at least mine worked when it was new.
Right. Exactly.
It was very fast when it was new. It just 20 years old. I don't know.
It's got this cool thing inside the fuel cap. When you open it, it's got these 3 generations of previous Broncos in little outline figures.
Oh, cool.
Which is like a little cool memento to the brand, the Bronco brand.
Because it's 100% about the people that used to have a Bronco.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, yeah, I want a new car, but I love the Bronco so much. Like,
well, it's tailoring. I think it's tailoring towards to like, my dad had a Bronco, and now I'm a 50-year-old man, and I have the money to buy a Bronco.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy one, And it's nostalgic and all those things. The mirrors themselves, this is just a random fact, the mirrors are not connected to the doors. So when you open the door, it looks really weird when you actually think about it.
The mirror just stays
The mirror just stays, which is really weird. It's like connected to the front quarter panel.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense, and the Jeep Wrangler didn't think of this, because when you take the doors off in the Jeep Wrangler, you don't have any side mirrors.
Yeah, right.
And so I assume you can't take the doors off in Australia, because that seems like it would be illegal.
Yeah.
But I think in America you can.
Yeah.
You just have to run without any side mirrors or get like an aftermarket replacement. But with the Bronco, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Because they're not connected, which is cool.
It's very Japanese to have your mirrors on the,
on
the bonnet.
front. Yeah, true. Right down on the front.
Probably not the same as
Like
what the Bronco's
the old
doing.
like Skyline vibe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just one mirror
Little
all the
round
way.
one.
All the way, like 10 meters away from where you're sitting.
I'm not sure if 10 meters is accurate.
Well,
So it gets a little confusing. So the Bronco's notorious for being highly customizable. And the way they do that is they have a bunch of different models and then they have a bunch of different packages that you can add to those models. So the models, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And the first one is called the base model, obviously. And so this is the essential Bronco, is the phrase that they use for this. And so it's just the essential things. It's all pretty basic interior, basic exterior. It looks like a Bronco. It is what it is. The next model is called the Big Bend.
Yeah.
And this is called the mainstream off-roading model. It has leather-wrapped steering wheel, heated seats, aluminum. Oh, I said aluminum. Sorry.
Aluminium.
Aluminium wheels. It has remote start. So it's got a few of the mod cons and the luxuries of today's world. The next one's called the Black Diamond, which they term the adventure off-roading vehicle. So it's got a few more serious things like a rear locking diff. It's got steel front and rear. It's got steel front and rear bumpers, rock sliding rails, skid plates along the bottom of it, and then this is the start of it's got 7 goat modes in this particular model. So that's Model 3. The fourth model is called Outer Banks.
It's like the show. Do you know what? Oh, okay. Well, it might be a different thing, but
well, I'm sure it's not the same thing.
Maybe it's a Ford thing then.
What?
Well, all right. So there's a Netflix show called Outer Banks.
Oh.
And it's been like a super popular show for like the last year.
Really?
So it's like they kind of made that and not known that it's the same thing as a Netflix show. I don't know.
They might have.
Maybe.
Possible. So this one they term the off-roading in style version. So you get 18-inch high-gloss alloy wheels, you get LED headlamps and tail lamps, body-coloured fender flares, you get the 12-inch touchscreen in this version, you get an upgraded sound system, which I think might be optional. The next model is called the Badlands, which is one word, which is the extreme off-roading model. You get Bilstein shocks, you get a stabilizer bar disconnect, so you can click a button and disconnect your sway bar. Which I think that's like, when you like see those photos of the full drives and they've got like one wheel crazily up and the other one down.
Yeah.
I think you have to disconnect the sway bar to be able to get that kind of flexibility. So it's got a electric version, like you can electronically disconnect that sway bar or stabilizer bar. It's got a front and rear locking diff at this point, and you got 35 or 33 all-terrain tires. And you can do either a simple or a more stylish interior, depending on what your idea of the car should be. The next one is called the Wild Track, which I think they do a Wild Track in the Ranger as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is sort of this is the top of the line, and so it's they call it higher speed off roading, and so it's got beadlock capable wheels. So beadlock, I'm not a full driving guy if you haven't noticed already, but my understanding is you can like literally screw the tires onto your rims, which is what they call bead locking. Because the bead of the tire is the bit that goes kind of over the lip of the rim. That's the bead.
Yeah.
And so if you bead lock, I think you actually physically lock it onto the rim. So if you get a bit of a flat or whatever, it still stays on. It doesn't fall off.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So it has it's all ready to go. It's bead locked capable, I guess you'd call it.
Hey, we went full driving one time together. That was pretty good.
With who? Oh, yes, we did.
Yes. And then we went through like a tiny puddle.
Yes.
And it was in a Land Cruiser.
Yes.
And the battery started smoking.
Oh,
and I was like, we're in the tiniest puddle
right.
in the most reliable car in the world.
That's true.
And the battery started to smoke.
True.
I was like, what? How did that even happen? Anyway.
35-inch tyres. You get the V6 EcoBoost at this point, auto transmission, and you get a black grille and wheels. And then the last one is called the First Edition, which is totally full. So reservations for this particular vehicle are full, and it was limited run, so you can't buy it. And it has the best of absolutely everything. and it's basically their collector's version, I think. So if you got that one, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So of those, you can then add these packages. So you can add the standard package, which you get black door handles, mirror caps, fender flares, manual aircon, push start button. That's kind of what is a part of it. If you get the mid package, you then get remote start, heated front seats, enhanced voice recognition, auto emergency braking, blind spot information system, auto high beam, and lane keeping system. If you do the high package, which is the third one up, you then get the 12-inch touchscreen, 360-degree camera, and you get additional sound deadening to make it sound better in the cabin, higher quality. You can get the Luxe package, and then you get a few things with this one. You get adaptive cruise, high-quality sound system, evasive steering assist, which sounds scary, but I assume it evasively moves around things if you're aiming at them.
Yeah.
Anyway, heated steering wheel, universal garage door opener. I assume that means you can open anyone's garage door.
Definitely.
Sounds good for thieves. You get a few more USB points, and you get a wireless charging pad, which is cool. And then the last one, which is really cool, which is worth getting a photo of, or some videos if we can, is called the Sasquatch package.
Yeah, so I found this when I was just looking up the Outer Banks. So the Outer Banks one is named after the place.
Okay. What place?
Well, it's the same thing. The show is named after the place.
Okay.
And so is the Ford
Okay.
Bronco Outer Banks.
Okay, I see.
So there you go.
Okay, great.
It's in NC, which I don't know where that is. North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Is my guess.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
If there are any Americans, correct us on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, please do. Give us a 5-star review. Give us a correction.
Yeah.
So the Sasquatch package comes standard on the Wild Track and the first edition, so they're basically the top versions. You get the beadlock capable wheels, you get the 35-inch mud tyres, electronic rear and front locking axles, 4.7 final drive ratio, high clearance suspension, Bilstein shocks, high clearance fender flares.
It's getting late.
Fender flares, sorry. So many words. It basically boils down to the Sasquatch package looks really aggressive. And if you were to then if you put a Sasquatch package vehicle next to one that isn't, you're never going to want to buy one that doesn't have that. So if you're going to buy a Bronco, it's going to need to have the Sasquatch package. It needs to have the bigger wheels. It needs to have the fender flares, the additional fender flares.
Yeah.
It just looks silly without it.
Yeah.
I like the car. We've got a friend here in Newcastle who has an older Bronco, and I sent it to him today.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I sent him some videos today, and they love it. So there was in some of the reviews that I watched, it was noted that it really is tailored more towards the owner of a Jeep Wrangler, as opposed to, it's not really a replacement for someone who owns a G-Wagon, for example, which is fancy inside but looks like an SUV off-road thing on the outside.
Yeah.
It's not that. So when you get in it doesn't feel highly luxurious. But if you are more the demographic who's going to buy a Wrangler, then I think this is potentially a better option.
Yeah, for sure.
It could be more collectible potentially, and there's been a lot of interest in it. So we'll just see how many they make. Will depend on whether or not it's collectible. If you've got the limited edition version, then higher chances that one day you might be able to sell it for more money. I like it. I wouldn't probably ever buy it because it's expensive, but I don't know. I could see why someone would want it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So
collectible item.
Yeah, I like it.
HQLA is the Australian. Wait. Let me put these back on. It's time to get serious.
Wait, were you not listening to anything I just said?
Zoning out from it. It's not like your voice can't travel across a meter. HQLA is the Australian company which is hoping for its own $39 billion acquisition. This has been episode 17. Thanks for joining us.
Yes,
Please tune in to Instagram to see a couple of reels and a few IGTVs.
Yes.
We're also on TikTok.
TikTok.
Which now features 3-minute clips as well as 1-minute clips. So we'll be mixing it up on the old TikTok.
We will.
We're also on Twitter.
Yes.
Their maximum video size, since we're talking about it, is 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Okay.
So we've actually been tailing our content our longer form content to be a maximum of that size,
Gotcha.
feel free to give us a retweet, a like, a comment,
Please
and
do.
a follow.
And we've been considering doing some shorter versions of our full podcasts on our audio platforms. And we're thinking we might call that HQLA Essentials.
HQLA Essentials.
So
Let us
keep
know.
your eyes out on that.
Give us a poll review of if you like HQLA Essentials or HQLA Quick Take.
Yes.
Also, make sure to hit us up with any kind of questions or queries, any suggestions, any
Yes.
segment title ideas. Hit us up at hqlapodcast@gmail.com. Also, we're also on BitClout. Feel free to buy our creator coin.
You know what? You can
BitClout.
actually email us at hello@hqla.com.
hello@hqla.com.
That's actually our email.
I'm going to blur out the other one and put this one in. And make sure that you stay safe during the pandemic.
There it is. Thank you.
There it is. Until next time, let's go.